Hey guys, welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel on your way in. I know I had changed the time to uh like 10 minutes from now, but then I was able to come on earlier, so hopefully it didn't confuse you guys and you guys have what's it called? Your notifications on because you should. Um like I said, like and subscribe on the way in. If I have to get up to put Ben's on the bed, I apologize because he's still pretending as though he cannot get on the bed. So yeah. Listen, we have kind of a lot to talk about, so I feel like this might end up being quite a long stream. So if you want to get something to drink, something to eat, kick back, because we got a lot to talk about. Hato, again, Dio would be very excited if you're in the chat. Dio, I know you are kicking your feet, giggling at this potential news. So we'll talk about Arsenal's battle with Chelsea for Joel Hato at Ajax. It's not the first time we've been linked to him. We were linked to him last summer. So we'll talk about that. Also want to talk about the news that's just come out around Arsenal still being very interested in Victor Gyokeres over the last couple of days. It's been Sesko, Sesko, Sesko. Now all of a sudden, Gyokeres is seemingly back in the picture. So we'll chit chat about that too. Right off the top, Sane is going to Galatasaray. Here we go. So he is no longer on our list, but Arsenal still need to go out there and be ambitious and get a third attacker. I really don't think there's any excuse not to. There are plenty of young gems out there that can play on that right-hand side to alleviate the stress on Saka and to ensure that we have enough firepower off of the bench. We've also missed out on Nypan. So if you're like, I thought we already missed out on him, didn't he go to Aston Villa? The update on that is that because they have PSR issues, they weren't able to complete that deal. And so for about a week or so, he was still in flux, still in play, and Manchester City have swooped him up. I do remember quite vividly around the January transfer window that Ornstein was like very adamant that it wasn't Manchester City that was trying to buy Nypan, it was Girona. But like, we're not dumb, no offense, David, but we weren't born yesterday. We're not the Nutty Buddy Peanut Butter Man. We know that Girona is City, and so City have bought Nypan. It's done. They are wrapping up that deal. So if you still were holding your breath potentially at getting this Norwegian wonder kid, you can, because we're not getting him. And I also want to kind of discuss maybe the risk of waiting on Rodrigo. We had kind of talked about it yesterday, but people are now starting to panic because Plettenberg, whatever, has said that Bayern are in like early discussions with Nico Williams for, the left wing position. And so we are seemingly waiting on Rodrigo and what is the, concern around that. So we'll talk about all those things. So, but listen, let's see. Yeah, there's just like a lot of stuff going on. See, it's like a lot going on and a lot of nothing going on. And I do tend to look at the timeline, and if I see quite a bit of panic, it's usually because somebody else has signed someone. And I think, City signing 4 players essentially and announcing them so quickly has given people a little bit of like what are we doing? Why aren't we doing stuff? Da 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 da. So, and I totally understand, the panic. I do think City needed to get things done early because they're in the Club World Cup. They wanted to. Even Chelsea had attempted to, even though they were less successful at doing so. They were trying to get Mike Mignon done. They were trying to get Ekatike done. They were trying to get Gittins done. They weren't able to get any of those deals done pre-Club World Cup. But City were obviously successful in doing that. So you tend to look at yourself and you're like, well, what are we doing wrong? But Arsenal are not going to be in a rush. They're going to need to negotiate probably a lot more than Man City because we don't have the same amount of funds. We know that they're able to put a lot more money up front in their deals to get those lower fees. And they get deals done a lot quicker. So there's always that context around things, right? So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of the panic, and there will be panic until we start to actually see maybe some of the bigger deals get over the line and we see them in the shirt. So, yeah, but Sam Dean has, come out and said that Arsenal are known to have shown strong interest in Gyökeres while also weighing up a move for RB Leipzig Sesko. It remains to be seen which of the two forwards they choose to prioritize or if they ultimately decide to target an alternative player. I hate that we're back in this in between zone again. I thought we had chosen Sesko and now we're going back to Gyökeres. Now some people are trying to say that we're going back to Gyökeres, and these reports about Arsenal or Gyökeres' agent speaking with Arsenal is more of a negotiation tactic for Berta to get the deal down for Sesko. We saw yesterday that some random reports about Sesko to Saudi had come out. Now today, Arsenal are back in talks with Gyökeres. I don't know if it's a negotiation tactic or not. I just think that, this was said to be a big week for Arsenal's pursuit in Sesko and a striker. And so it is Wednesday. And so hopefully by Friday we get some more clarity, maybe an actual Ornstein, bomb or something like that. But yeah, I think the patience will start to wear thin post this week if we don't have a clear view on what's going on. And Gyökeres is still in play, and I'm sure he still wants to come to Arsenal. But, I just think, I'm maybe not the most patient, but I can understand why it's taking a little bit longer with the context around making sure that we have as much money as possible to attribute towards something else. But that patience does end up wearing thin, at some stage. So, yeah, PW says RB Leipzig want more money up front, and I'm sure that they do. I'm sure that RB Leipzig, I do think coming into this window, anticipated there to be a longer line for Sesko, and I think they wanted one of those big blockbuster kind of signings where they were going to get, the 100 million package. Early on in the window, it was said that Sesko was going to cost 93 million. Everybody panicked, but I didn't really panic because I'm like, you don't have any leverage. RB Leipzig need to sell now because they didn't make Champions League. And so they're in a position where they need to sell an asset and they're going to sell their prized asset. I think they also thought, get him to sign a new deal. Don't sell him for the 50 million last summer. And then this summer they'll be able to sell, but they've had a down year. Sesko wasn't as good as he was the year prior, and neither were RB Leipzig. So there's not a long line for him, despite so many people needing a striker. And so they're kind of between a rock and a hard place now with Arsenal having, turned his head and having him, like, I want to go to Arsenal. They're in a situation now where they kind of don't have as much leverage. So I do think they're trying to put some other links out there, Saudi links out there, to try to leverage, the deal a little bit more. But Arsenal are not going to want to pay over the odds for Sesko because he, if he cost 50 million last summer, there's no way that he costs 80 million now. His value has not increased that much, so they're going to have to give a little. We're probably going to have to give a little. I do feel like this could be negotiation tactics, but, Gyökeres' name obviously being thrown back in, is, once I think people were wrapping their head around the Sesko idea, is going to throw a little bit more of like the constant Sesko, Gyökeres. So yeah, let's just get it done. Steven says, Gyökeres, please get him no to Sesko, which is exactly what I'm talking about. Josh says, I get that we have to be patient, but seeing other teams, particularly City and Liverpool, be super proactive is very worrying. It's hard not to be. I think it's mostly just City, if I'm really honest with you guys. I think I've seen people say, everybody is so active. Everybody is so active. And I'm like, we're seeing their links. Yeah, we're seeing their links, but do they have, here we goes? Do they have players in the shirt? City have 4 players in the shirt already. So I won't say that they're not doing business, but Liverpool have Frimpong and they just got a here we go for Wirtz. And they've been working on Wirtz longer than we've been working on Sesko. It's been at least almost a full week ahead, so they have 2 here we goes. We have 2 here we goes. I get it that it's not all the things that you guys want. It's not the striker and stuff like that, but it's really just City that are working tirelessly and quickly, and it's mostly because they're in the Club World Cup. And also, I think that they were a little embarrassed by their season, so they're trying to, make sure that people understand that they're going to be back. I would love Arsenal to work in that way, but I also don't think we're working as slowly as people think. What the window opened June something, and it's June 11th, so it's been like a week, maybe 2 at the max, so I don't know that I believe that we're working so slow. I just think it's hard to watch other people get linked, and then, you see the Fabricios or every single article coming out about they're interested in so and so, they're interested in so and so, so it seems like they're doing a lot. Most teams have maybe one here we go or one player that's wrapped up, except for City. you know, City is just insane. They're just on a different level. And to be honest, I know this is not going to sound nice, but we're not playing with the same deck of cards that they are. Syed says, "Come on, we've been working on Sesko for a year now." I mean, yeah, we kind of have, but the negotiations are what they are. If they've expected to get 80 million and last summer we were expecting to pay about 50, then the negotiation is going to be different than it was last season. I mean, I would implore people to use a little bit of, if you take your emotions out of it and think of it from a plain perspective, we're not negotiating on a 50 million pound deal anymore. We're negotiating on something where they expect to get 80 and we're still expecting to pay about 50. So it's not the same as the negotiations for last season. That doesn't mean that we have done some work on it, but I don't know how you guys expect the deal to go smoothly and exactly the same if the parameters around the deal are completely different. So I implore people to use a little bit of just the normal things that you would use in normal life and attribute those to this. Take your emotion out of it. I don't know. Um, let's see. Hey, Jess, hope is all good. Hope we make an immediate announcement continuing June 16th. Arsenal must sign at least 3 players by preseason start date, or else it'll be another Sterling situation. So if we had Zubi and Kepa and the striker, would that be enough, to start the preseason? Do you think we would be active if we had sold Kai and Jesus to free up wages? Well, we're not selling Kai and Jesus. I don't know. I feel like that's a weird question because we can't sell Jesus now. And we're not going to sell Kai Havertz now. So it doesn't really, I feel like that's like a nothing thing. Victor says Leipzig are greedy as fuck. I don't know if I would say that they're greedy. I would just say that they are expecting to sell one of their best players for more than, because the whole reason why they offered him a new deal last summer is to get more. Like that's essentially what it is. They could have sold him to us last summer, but they got him on a new deal anticipating being able to almost double the fee. And they're in a fucked up position now because they're like, we prolong this. So if we basically get the same, or was it worth it? So from their perspective, they feel like they want more. And Arsenal are probably using common sense and saying, what has Sesko done in this last 12 months to warrant a boost of 30 million pounds, or 30 million euros or whatever. And I think that's essentially the conversation that they're having. BroPro says, can someone update on the Gyokeres situation? Okay, that light just said, fuck you. Like, I don't want to be on anymore. Are you okay? And that's why I have a million lights around this bitch. Yeah, I mean, the Gyokeres situation is just that, Fabrizio has said that Arsenal are still very interested in him, and nothing has really, changed on that front. And now different people are coming out and saying that, especially like from Portugal, that Arsenal, are in talks with Gyokeres' agent right now, and the deal is at an advanced, stage where it wasn't before. That's pretty much, the update on things. But yeah, let's see. Jonathan says, what are the chances of signing both Sesko and Gyokeres? If Chelsea and Man United were in our position, I feel they'd be more aggressive in the window. We're a very cautious club. I'll be honest though, Jonathan, I feel like only one striker can play at a time, and I'm not 100% sure that we need to be buying 2 strikers in this window. I think we need to buy 1 and make sure that we get other attackers in different areas. I do think we'll look back on a summer where we bought 2 strikers and say, "Well, why don't we use maybe the other 60 million to get a left wing?" I understand, like, Chelsea are probably gonna buy 2 strikers in this window. They're buying Delap, and they're probably still gonna try to buy Ekitike, so I totally get that. But I think we need to look at our own situation and ask ourselves, do we want Gyökeres and Sesko for any other reason but just feeling like we're doing a lot, or do we need to be more practical and think about where that money needs to be spread out? Because no matter how we spin it, no matter how you think about it, I want our club to be more ambitious, but our owners are the Cronkies. There's a set amount of money there, and if you spend almost all of the money on 2 strikers, you are going to miss out on something really important, and only one striker is going to play at a time. And don't even sit there and say, but you can play them together. Don't nobody want to play no 4-4-2. Nobody wants to play a 4-4-2. So one striker, a left wing, and something else, whether it's an attacking midfielder or a right winger, is the direction we need to go in. And I think getting a left winger and getting a striker, to me, depending on who the players are, if we can also get a right wing, is just as ambitious as going out there and getting 2 strikers. I don't see the benefit in buying 2 strikers when our left wing is what it is. Bring me Barcola, please. Ultimately, what do you think we need this summer? Striker, left wing, one of an attacker, an attacking mid as the third attacking signing, and then you can get whatever else you want after that. I'm really not too fussed about the defender. I'm really not too fussed about goalkeeper, and I know we've already done that. I just want 3 attackers. Like that's pretty much where I'm at with it. Um, let's see. Chelsea and United are not the example to use. Chelsea fans are not happy with their window and they have Club World Cup. I feel like, what do we need in order to feel like we're being ambitious, not looking at everybody else? I feel like looking at everybody else gives you a false sense of like, well, they're buying so and so, but do we need that player? You know what I mean? So, and what position are we actually in? We're in a fucked up position mostly because of last summer. Last summer set us back. We'd probably be in a better position to go out there and get those like top 1% players to like really put the cherry on top of the project if we hadn't just completely ignored one summer window, right? So we're almost playing catch up. There's no way that we can just buy 2 players in one position this summer. There's no way that we can just spend 100 and something million on one player this summer because we have such a large thing that we need to get done. We need a surgery on our front line. We need it. And we need two starters potentially, like a striker that can start and a left wing that can start. And then somebody to back up Saka or somebody to add more creativity. Idealistically, it'd be nice to get somebody who can do both, right? And so I just don't think we're in the same situation as other people. I think our situation is quite unique. It is a little bit more of a consequence of being dumbasses last summer. So we need to think about what's best for us and not what everybody else is doing. Of course, you want to keep pace. I don't necessarily feel like we're so far behind as other people think. I just think we need to get the striker thing done. Getting the striker thing done, I think will give people a little bit more of like a whew, but I understand. I'm not saying don't um don't have those feelings, because ultimately, like, I've had those feelings before as well, but I'm just trying to add a little bit of context around it that you guys can use to maybe lessen the stress a little bit, because as somebody who has a high level of stress when it comes to Arsenal and does tend to get down on the window, I do feel like there's not enough of like just stuff being applied to, like, you know what I mean? Just to lessen it. I feel like we're a little bit like, oh my God, it's the worst. And it's like, just relax, just give it 2 seconds. Um, I feel like if we are a homeowner with not much to do our house, but those with bando style homes are renovating and we seem to be jealous of them, I just think we need a lot. So what tends to happen is, especially when your owners are the Cronkies and you're not backed by a nation state, right? you're going to have limitations. And those limitations mean that you have to be really smart with the money that you have. And so, no duplicates in one position, no positions that you don't really need. Prioritize the positions that are going to make the biggest difference. Those are things that I'm looking for, like spending as little money as you possibly can in defense and goalkeeper to make sure that the majority of what we have goes in the attack. You know what I mean? Trying to make sure that you don't overspend on Sesko, which will inevitably affect left wing, because left wing is also important. Those are the things that I'm personally looking for. Let's see. We are not 1 or 2 windows behind anymore. We are at least 2 quality attackers away from City and Liverpool. That's it. We have been competing with them with a mid-front line for at least a few seasons. Yeah, and I think we have to get those players in. And so I don't want people to feel like I'm saying like it's okay not to get these players in. That's not what I'm saying. Like, I'm just saying that we know we're working on the striker. It is a little bit jarring that we keep hearing more than one name, but I do feel like maybe it's a little bit of a tactic. Here comes Benz. Why is he pretending like he can't get up these steps? It is so like, why are you doing that? Yeah, come in here and sit down. But yeah, like, we do need to get those players in, and I expect those players to come in. If we don't get them, then yeah, I'm gonna be the first one on this stream cussing people out. Of course, 100%. But I still feel like there's every chance that we'll get those players done. Let's see. Do you think we should sell Gabby to West Ham to get Kudus or Bowen? I'm answering a couple of questions and going through the chat. We will get back to Hato. I just want to get through some of these comments because, your guys' comments are really important to me. But the Gabby to West Ham thing or whatever, listen, I don't know what Gabby you're talking about. Are you talking about Jesus? Or are you talking about Martinelli? I think you might be talking about Martinelli. I would sell Martinelli to anyone that has the money available. I just think that he's the best person to sell at this point, but I'm not really counting on him going at this stage. So I would sell him to anybody who has the money required, to get it done. I like Martinelli. I just feel like we're almost like past it, whatever he's offering, So yeah, I mean, I guess so. But like in terms of to get Kudus or to get Bowen, I actually am probably in the weird camp of people that really rate Bowen and would not really turn my nose up at the opportunity to get somebody like that. I think he's incredibly hardworking. I think he's worked from the bottom up. I really do like players that come from the championship and work their way up because I feel like they just are built from a different stock. And he scores lots of goals, and I think he's very different to Saka. I think, as long I know people pin them up against each other, but they're 2 completely different players. I would take either one of Bowen or Kudus in a heartbeat. And yes, I need to put Benzema on the bed. Hold on. You're on the bed. Why are you crying? Why are you crying? So spoiled. So spoiled. He's so spoiled. He's up on the bed. Why is he crying? But yeah, Martinelli is somebody that I would move on. I saw that his comp from yesterday's Brazil game was going around. Make of that what you will. Do you think Xabi would start to dry at left wing? Who's to dry? At left wing over Vinny. The Madrid zone says he wants to play left wing in Madrid. I think you mean like Rodrigo. I don't actually know what's going to happen with the Rodrigo left wing situation. I do think some stuff was coming out yesterday around he's not in Xabi's starting 11. The introduction of Mascherano is pushing Rodrigo further down the pecking order. And even if he was a starter playing on right wing, that's not his ideal scenario. I don't see a way that he gets into the starting 11 next season in his preferred position. Now, whether or not he's the type of player that has the type of personality to want to leave and to pave his own way outside of Real Madrid, that's yet to be seen. But there needs to be some sort of time frame on what when we're wanting to get that confirmation. There's reports everywhere saying that Arteta is in love with Rodrigo. He really wants him at Arsenal. And I would imagine that if there wasn't a chance that we could get him, we wouldn't be waiting. I know that it's like Arsenal are so incompetent, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like, we may be a little bit like silly at times and maybe make wrong decisions, but I don't think that we're so stupid that we would sit there and wait on a player that we know we had no chance of getting. Now, if he becomes a little tease and he's like, kind of taking too long to make this decision, then yeah, we need to move on. But the fact that Arteta is so obsessed with him, like ever since Rodrigo became a potential option, the conversations around Nico Williams have pretty much died. And that makes me feel like they really do want him, and maybe they do feel like there's a chance, but we need to be sure that we can execute this deal quickly if there is a smidgen of a chance. You don't want him changing his mind. Certain players do leave. Most of the time you have to be pushed out of Madrid as well. Like, it's very rare that a player just leaves on their own volition. A lot of times they need to almost be pushed out, so we'll see, how things develop. I would imagine that nothing will get done with left wing anyway until the striker is wrapped up. But there is a risk, and I would hope that Arsenal and Berta especially are not willing to risk our season off of the back of, Arteta being so obsessed with a player that may not even leave, so we need to make sure we strike up the right balance, of waiting for your preferred target, but also being ready to walk away to ensure that we don't fuck up, that's where I think we're at, I like Gyokeres. Give me all the ball striking. World Cup year, he will want to start. We have a good shot. I mean, that's a really good point as well. Like, I think about all the players that we're linked to and whether or not we'd be a good place for them to land based on the fact that they want to start for their national team. And Rodrigo is somebody that, is kind of not so much a guarantee, I feel at times, and he wants to be at the World Cup 110%. And if he plays for Arsenal, he's a shoo-in. If he fucks around at Real Madrid, he may not. So God forbid Martinelli makes the team and you don't, so I think he has an opportunity to change the narrative around his career, and not like it's in the dumps, but it's a slippery slope. You allow them to bring in a couple of young players. They have Mascherano. They have somebody like Güler as well. Vinny is not moving. That's pretty much like their franchise player kind of guy. Also, they have like another franchise guy that can also play in your position. They're bringing in a striker. You're falling down that pecking order quite quickly. Before you know it, you're Lucas Vasquez, so you need to think about what direction you want to go in. Do you want to be Lucas Vasquez, or do you want to be Alexis before he lost his mind? So yeah. Jess, do you think Madrid would accept 80 million bid for Rodrigo if we bid now? I think so. 80 million is a lot. And I think the fee that's being banded around is actually closer to 70. So yeah, I do think so. Brahim Diaz as well. Endrick is still there. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why he should leave, but then there's also reasons probably for himself why he'd want to stay. And so I don't want to act like I don't understand those things. Like, you're at the best club that you could ever be at, the club that all players want to be at. You're not going back, so once you close that door, it's probably donezo for you in terms of it's not going to happen for you again. So it's a big decision for him to make. And especially at like his age, he's like 24 years old. This is a pivotal time in his career. And I do think whatever decision he makes, whether it's staying or going, is pretty much going to etch what his career is going to look like in stone. So it's important for him to make this decision based on what he truly wants, and not to feel like he's begrudgingly leaving. You know, I feel like if I was a player, I'd want to feel like I'm leaving because I want to and not because I feel like, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like you want to feel like you're making that decision. So, yeah. Akin says, "Hey Jess, please tell me why we haven't gone in for Kudus. Probably because that position is not a priority just as of yet. Striker is definitely the number one priority, then left wing. They'll probably also prioritize defense as well, and then move back to backup right wing. You know, if you think about the priorities in this window, bringing in a right winger, which is where Kudus plays. I know I see weird things with him on the left hand side, but he's quite literally not a left winger. He is a right winger. And so I think it makes sense for that to be our smallest priority. At least between that and defense. We really need to focus on getting the striker in the left wing. Jess, if Party leaves, what if we push Skelly into midfield and sign Hato? It's something that I've suggested. I remember suggesting not even buying another DM because I just think it's ridiculous to buy another one, and to push Miles Lewis-Skelly into midfield. And I remember the chat saying, "Oh my God, you're crazy." But I'm just like, why? Why are we stockpiling DMs? Why do we need another DM? Why are we trying to replicate the balance of having Partey and Jorginho? We don't need that. We don't need 4 fucking DMs. We really don't. When you have a player like Miles Lewis-Skelly coming through, when you have Zubamendi and you have Rice, you are more than stocked in the DM position. Yes, Miles Lewis-Skelly or Rice playing in that position means you'd have to play in a different way. But guess what? That's what most teams do. Most teams do not have 3 or 4 DMs just chilling, but no attacking mids. You got to figure out where you're willing to give and take. And for me, the DM position is not one that I feel like if Partey were to go, we'd need to reinvest in that position. I feel like it's ridiculous when you have the players that you have at your disposal. Yeah, maybe just move Miles Lewis-Skelly to back a, third DM if it gets down to it, because you could even play Rice at the DM and Miles Lewis-Skelly left center mid. You have fucking options if you want to use them. If you want to get away from the box crasher left center mid, you have options available to you. And then maybe you bring in somebody like Hato. But when I look at the Hato situation as well, I'm like, he's quite young. Like him and Miles Lewis-Skelly battling it out for this position, again, in a World Cup year, feels strange to me because one of them is not going to play as much unless Arteta is this actually going to be different this season, so we shall see. Yo-Yo says Miles Lewis-Skelly played midfield, versus Ipswich. Would like to see him there again next season in the early cup games if possible. Space Time says not Hato and overlapper. Then we can move Miles into midfield. Can I be honest? You're not getting an overlapping fullback. We're not getting an overlapping fullback. We haven't been linked to a single one. All of the defenders that we've been linked to have been center backs. And if they're center back and can play left wing or left back, they're pretty much like what we have. I probably the best version of an overlapping fullback that we're going to get is Calafiori. I do think that obviously we want different things. If we could all rip up the team and start again, we'd probably recruit completely different players, play a completely different style. But Arteta likes his center backs at fullback. The current link to Hato is a pretty clear indication that he's liking the dynamic that we have back there. He likes the Timber style. He likes the Calafiori style. And that's probably what we're going to move forward with. Ben White and Calafiori are the overlappers, and Hato and Timber would be your 1v1 demon defenders, kind that can pinch into midfield. I'm sorry. If you had to tell me, if Arteta was like, tell me back to me what my tactics are and what I like to do, I could tell him just like he wrote it down. This man is not deviating from it. He's not going to go get an Anthony Robinson. He's not going to go get an overlapping style fullback. He is going to double down on this shit, so, Fabrizio had said that Arsenal Actually, I have it right here. I had made a call to Ajax to be informed on the Joel Hato situation, and we called after Chelsea did. Um, you know, so I don't know really how to feel about it because I really don't care about the defenders' positions. I am tired of talking about defenders, but um he's a really good player, good young player, definitely, it's not like if he came in, I'd be like, oh my gosh, we bought a bum. Like we would have gotten another timber type, that's great. Um, how much is he going to cost? That's another question. I do think that Ajax probably felt like we robbed them. So will they let us rob them again and pay about 40? I don't know. I think Hato will cost more. So we'll see. Um, but the defenders are what they are. I'm more concerned about making sure that left wing gets in and the striker, that defender is like, okay, we're going to buy another timber. Great. I don't care. Ruak says Hato would be about 30, 40. Marco says 40 million plus 10 in add-ons, 35, 40. Yeah. Something around there. Hato coming would be great if we sign the attackers we need. We need at least 3 attackers. I think we need 3. Hato, a good signing only if we get left wing and striker. Exactly. It'd be the exact same scenario as when we got Kala. When we got Kala, obviously, this is injuries aside, because I think the injuries did kind of conflate the conversation around, is he good? Like it's like, well, he's injured all the time. Yeah, but we know he's a baller, right? But early on when Kala came in, there was almost like this instant, almost like desperation to want the signing to be a failure and to again conflate whether or not we needed this player or should this have been a priority and whether or not this player is good or not. And that was also the same conversation that we were having around Juan Garcia. It's the pro Arteta people were, well, the other side, they're so stupid. They don't get Juan Garcia is so good. Look at this chart. Oh my gosh. And it's like, that wasn't the point though. It's, do we need to be investing this amount of money in a goalkeeper when our attack is like an old beaten down shack, with the roof caving in, right? So I think the similar conversation could potentially happen with Hato if we end up not getting the things that we're supposed to, because ultimately we will not and should not be happy if we do not get at least 2 attackers, 2 quality attackers, if not 3. So Hato will be obviously the the punching bag should we not get the other things, because the conversation won't really matter whether or not he's a great player or not. All we'll know is that we have big gaping hole up front, so Arsenal still need to get those things done. But is Hato a great player? Yes, of course he is. He's very good, well regarded, young, was captain of Ajax at some stage as well. They've gone through a difficult time. It's time for him to go. But battling anything out with Chelsea it could get dark very quickly, because they like to overspend too. They're one of those that will do anything to beat us to a target. I can't remember what target have we had where both of us have had them and we've ended up on top. I don't know. So maybe while they're at the Club World Cup, we can start doing the groundwork to get that done. So by the time they're out of that shit, it's done, but I think we're probably the best place for him. Jesus, maybe. Yeah, Jesus. But, I think we're the best place for him to land, because there's a very clear way that we play, but Maresca also plays with inverted fullbacks and shit like that too. So, you probably maybe can see himself there as well. I would imagine like Timber, if you can't convince him to come to us over Chelsea, then like, I love you. It's not like I would not want you here still, but like, they wanted him last summer, but acted like they were never in for him. I don't know how after 3 seasons of not signing an out and out 9, we are still indecisive about signing one. It baffles me. I don't know if we're indecisive about signing one. I think we are in like, I don't even know if I really do believe that the Gyokeres thing has turned around completely. I don't know if I don't believe that this is just negotiation tactics. I feel something in my gut tells me it's negotiation tactics, and we're trying to get the fee down by basically saying that, "Fuck it, we'll just go get Gyokeres, like, if you don't come down on the fee, like, we'll just go for Gyokeres, fuck it." Like, we can get him for 60 million, that's what we're kinda willing to pay, so I don't know if I feel like we're indecisive about getting one. I just feel like it feels like we're indecisive about who we're gonna get, and that I understand that. But yeah, the Gyokeres stuff is just, I don't know if I believe, uh, I don't know if I believe that things are just, like, changing and shifting beneath our feet. Um, but I could be wrong. Tomorrow we could be like, "Oh, we've abandoned talks with Sesko and now we're going Gyokeres," so, um, let's see. This says, "Attenzione! Attenzione! Watch out for the return of Arsenal for Victor Gyokeres. This would affect Juve. The Gunners could make a real move if Benjamin Sesko were to decide to accept another club. He has an offer from Arab clubs, but would like to stay in Europe. So even that is like, we already know he's not going to those Saudi clubs. So if your whole reason for being like, attenzione, he could go to a Saudi club and then he's not going Saudi. Come on. Sesko is not going Saudi. But these record Portugals and these types saying like, Victor Gyokeres' representatives are currently meeting with Arsenal's owners, blah, blah, blah. Also, just for both Gyokeres and Sesko, yeah, for Sesko and Gyökeres, if I could give them any advice, and future footballers any sort of advice, you need to get these gentleman agreements. You cannot do gentleman agreements with your club because they're never going to take what you want into consideration. When it comes down to their coin, they're always going to take their own, like, they're always going to have their own back, and they're never going to actually go through with the gentleman's agreement. We remember the gentleman's agreement that was between Kane and Levy, and they completely just fucked him over. Both Sesko and Gyökeres having gentlemen's agreements with their clubs, and both being mad because the clubs are not living up to those gentlemen's agreements, should be a clear sign for these players to get things written down, make sure it's in your release clause, make sure that you can get out if you want to, or just don't sign, because these clubs are fucking liars. Like, they are lying to you, and they only think about themselves. And this is kind of why I try not to be too mad about players thinking about themselves, because I'm like, well, clubs will throw you in the trash. Like, contracts go both ways. Clubs don't fulfill their contracts. They will sell you to the highest bidder, with whether you're within your contract or not. Like, with whether your contract has 2 years or 1 year on it, they don't give a fuck. So why do you care about what they want? Like, I'm not trying to hear all that. They need to put that shit in writing. Any agent that rests his client's future on a gentleman's agreement is incompetent. Players need to be educated on these things. They do. Like, to me, this is ridiculous. I don't see why it happens to these really good strikers all the time too. Like, they tell the club that, listen, I know I have this release clause, but I really want to leave for blank, so if I stay another year or whatever, will you do this for me? And they always renege on it. They always renege on it. I don't know why they keep doing the gentleman's agreements. This is why I don't get mad at players for messing with their clubs. Clubs don't care about you. One bad injury and most of them leave you behind. Clubs break promises all the time, like Zaha and Palace. Yeah, I'm like, why am I hearing about gentlemen's agreements in 2025, baby? You need to get that shit in writing, or you need to say, well, I ain't signing then. I'm not signing shit. Like, I want it in my release clause. I want a release clause that allows me to maneuver and get out of here if I want to go. If not, then I'm not signing shit, because hello, Sesko and Gyokeres both being in the same situation is just frustrating because you just cannot leave your future up to a gentleman's agreement. The clubs never go with it. They just never do it, you know? Who's better, Duran or Sesko? I mean, Duran, last time I checked, wasn't even really doing that well Saudi, so I don't really know, you know? So, um, I think they're both pretty much on the same level, if I'm honest. Barella and McAllister are very similar in their style of play. I agree with that. So yeah, but yeah, the Hato thing, listen, we know we're probably gonna get a defender. I think Arsenal mentioning Gahey, Hato being calling Hato, wanting Dean Hoyson means that there probably is a good chunk of money set aside for these players, or a defender. Hopefully it doesn't impact what we're trying to do up front, you know, because we need to make sure that the majority of the money goes up front. But as long as we get a good defender, I'm like, whatever about it. Like, am I going to be jumping for joy that we got another left back, you know, that's really a center back? No, but you know, it is what it is. Arsenal are awaiting Rodrigo's decision if he decides to leave Real Madrid after his talks with Jabi Alonso. That's what David Ornstein has said. Now, the interesting thing about that, though, is that there was a period of time, maybe about 2 weeks ago, where David Ornstein was talking about Arsenal and didn't really mention Rodrigo. And then also, when he was asked, he said, I don't have information on that. The fact that he's even speaking about Arsenal waiting means that, like, yeah, like, I think there's a chance that this could happen. Um, we've went from like it not even being on Ornstein's radar to it being like he is on the list and very much so the number one choice, and Arsenal are waiting on his response. So we're definitely sitting there waiting on the phone call. You know, we'll see how it goes, man. Um, it's so crazy. Um, Arteta's just sitting there, fingers crossed. Arteta really wanting him. The little soft spot that I do have for Arteta makes me want him to get this player because he's never really gotten top attackers, and like how excited would he be to get Rodrigo? But the other side of me is like, but you need to be ready to pivot away, Mikel, if it doesn't work. You can't do the thing that you usually do where you can't get your number one. So you're like, well, then I'll just go with what I have. You know, he needs to be ready to walk away. Somebody needs to say, but you're going to be ready to walk away, right? If he says no, you can't just have these, yeah, you can't just be infatuated with him. And if he stays at Real Madrid, then just be sitting there like a lost puppy, you know? Jordan says, so is the window going to be all Chelsea players? Why would the whole window be all Chelsea players? Winning Ways says we need a number 10, offer something completely different to Odegaard. Probably not going to get that. As much as people don't like it, Arsenal are probably going to prioritize Max Dowman and Ethan's progression over buying somebody that probably is not going to start for us. So yeah, City moving like they're playing Football Manager, just picking up all the wonder kids. This is unfair as hell, but it is what it is. Let's see. Not bothered by Nypan, just info. Sesko is better striker, or should I say player. Gyokeres is a gunman in front of goal, but Sesko is a better technician and a sniper. They're both really good players with very clear pros and cons. For the rubbish football we play, which I believe we will continue to play next season, we need a player who can just get the ball in the net by any means necessary. Gyokeres is that player. Well, I actually think that, you know, when you look at even Sesko and the way that he plays outside of just his goal tally, it's actually a plus that he was even able to score those 13 goals, considering that he plays a link up role where he comes deep and actually provides the balls in the box for somebody else. He takes very little touches in the box, and when he is in the box, he's efficient. I actually think that he would do well in a system where you don't really get a lot of service. Like, we don't really service the striker as much as we possibly could. You get these like balls into the box, like when we're playing against deep blocks. You think about when we're playing against deep blocks, the fact that the majority of the opportunities that you're going to get are headers. Sesko is elite aerially, where Gyokeres is not. Gyokeres is actually probably his weakest point is his aerial prowess. So I do think some of the like goal scuffles that he could get, like if he gets like the odd chance in the box, he can get those. But it's not like Sesko needs like perfect, he needs like a perfect settings to score goals either. Most of his goals are individual brilliance, or really good headers in the box. So Sesko would help us as well in those situations where against 80% of the league, we're playing against deep blocks. If we're going to be crossing the ball at nauseum, which we usually do, Sesko would actually probably be a better option for that. So we'll see. Hand of Arsenal cited a week ago, there is very concrete interest in Rodrigo. There is. Odie has been subbed a lot under Arteta, so Ethan and Dowman must be trusted to get Mins next season and not see Kai or Leo being asked regularly to create. I don't know how people it's like you just know Arsenal are going to prioritize their Hale End players, especially when they've spoken about them so brightly. I do think that what Arsenal fans don't realize, or maybe not counting on, is if you bring in another number 10 that's going to be prioritized over these two players, then you guys are going to be crying when they don't sign new deals. If you go out there and you go buy Xavi Simmons, or you go buy like, a ready-made number 10 that's going to be prioritized over those two, then when they don't sign new deals because they don't see a path, you guys will be kicking the club for not being able to keep these young talents. So sometimes you can't get it both ways, especially because we know that there's Havertz and Marino who are actually more of a wall between that, getting somebody or not. It's not really about Odegaard. It's about the fact that both Marino and Havertz are attacking midfielders in Arteta's mind. So I don't know why people think that there wouldn't be repercussions for signing a number 10 when you have two, top like Hale Enders coming through. They're not signing new deals if they know they're not going to get playing time. I don't know why people don't get that. I don't hate Havertz, but I will never accept him as good enough. Imagine we sign both strikers and push Havertz back in the 10. We definitely won't do that. And why would we want to? Max is 15, though. Why can't he be under 21 for a bit? Because he's too good. They've already had him in training, and they feel, as the club, the coaches, and the whole staff feel like he's beyond the 21s and we need to integrate him now. If the club is saying that they feel like he is a Lamine Yamal like level talent, that's not a player that you're going to put in your under 21s. That's definitely a player that if you put him in your under 21s, he is going to go to Manchester City or Barcelona, two teams that are sniffing around him that would be very much so interested in signing him should we not create a pathway for him. So again, like, I totally understand. Like, I would love to get like a cut price number 10 in, somebody to take the Marino Havertz of it all out. But realistically, in my mind, I know that's not going to happen, which is why I've been pretty consistent on saying, okay, well, probably not going to get attacking mid, but what we don't have is true backup for Saka. No, none of our players really can be true backup for Saka, not Leo, not Martinelli, not really Ethan either. So you can actually do that and allow those other players to play their natural position. Putting pressure on Ethan and Dowman when we are meant to be challenging for titles is crazy. They are not ready for all that. We need players who can impact midfield now. Do you really so did Ethan not impact our season this season? I'm just asking, because we've gone from, we literally have seen Ethan in our team this season. So Max is a different story, but he's like almost like an extra bonus for this season. Ethan is really the player that's meant to come in and impact. Did Ethan not make an impact this season outside of maybe running out of gas for like the last 2 months or so? There was a period of time where people wanted him over Odegaard in the team. people were salivating for him to be in this team during preseason because he was playing so well. So did Ethan not impact our season, or because I feel like we're flip-flopping now. It's we wanna get into the number 10 market because City have bought Cherky and Wirtz. So now Ethan's not good enough, but when we were playing during the season, Ethan needed to come in for Odegaard because he was better, and he had shown already in the season that he was too good. So which one is it? I'm confused, you know? Wanyeri was a better goal scorer than most of our forwards. Facts, that's exactly what it is. If Ethan wasn't scoring those important goals, we might not be top 4 right now. I think what actually is it? I really genuinely feel like it's mostly just because, and I'm not saying that, obviously when other teams do stuff, you wanna do it too, right? City and Liverpool have gone out and got really good number 10s in this window, and Cherky and Wirtz. So I think we're like, we need to respond, but they don't really have Max Dowman and Ethan in the wing. They don't really have those players, and to not even consider them or to pretend like Ethan didn't make any sort of impact because we just want to buy. I'm telling you guys right now, if you go out there and you buy a good number 10, which I love these players, Xavi, Simmons, or Eze, you are losing those 2 players. You are losing those 2 players. You got Marino, you got Havertz, you buy a new person, you have Odegaard, and you're telling me that Ethan is just gonna accept sitting on our bench for a couple years when he knows that he impacted our Champions League, when he knows he's impacted our Premier League? Come on now. It's if they feel like Max Dowman is a Lamine Yamal level talent, you can't have that player in the under 21s because City is gonna take him from us or Barcelona is gonna take him from us. They're already sniffing around. So, to me, it's a little bit of like a balancing act, And I do think that if we go out and get the players that we need to get in the striker position and left wing and even maybe right wing, there'll be less of this clamor to go get a number 10 because I know you guys enjoy watching Ethan play. I know you guys enjoy, and you're not even taking into consideration that if that was his first season, what is he going to be like next season? But because other teams got other things, it's like, well, fuck Ethan. Well, you're going to say fuck Ethan right over to Chelsea, or fuck Ethan right over to City, or fuck Ethan right to Barcelona, or fuck Max Dowman right to Barcelona. To me, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to not prioritize these players, especially when you know that number 10 is not the only thing you need to be looking at. You definitely need to be looking at other things. And I don't think you're necessarily relying upon Ethan or Max Dowman when we know they're not starters. So where's the relying upon? Dowman is ready. I don't think we've seen Odegaard's full potential at Arsenal. Like when he plays for Norway, maybe he knows we have a poor strikers, making him play a less creative way compared to playing with Havertz. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Odegaard. I think it's funny that people were retweeting Martinelli's comp yesterday and today saying Arteta is a terrorist. Look what he's done. Like Martinelli is so much better for Brazil, but there was nothing in any of like that comp that was anywhere near that touched what Odegaard's done in the last 2 games for Norway. Yet and still, that was just more like, yeah, well, Odegaard, he doesn't do it when we need him to. He has more assists than anybody else in World Cup qualifying, even though he's a player that's not creative, according to our fan base. The reality is Arteta's system impacts all of our forwards and all of our attackers, including Saka. But it only fits your narrative when it's a player that you like. If it's Odegaard and you don't like Odegaard, you're like, fuck him. He's just shit. But Martinelli, the system is keeping him from being able to trap a ball. So I think when Odegaard had 1 bad season and he's our captain, and I don't really think that this is the last, this is his final season if he doesn't get it together. The club don't feel that way. He's the captain. I saw people during the season saying that the players hate Odegaard and they're sick of him, but all the quotes coming out from his teammates are that he's the perfect captain for us and blah blah blah. So like, listen, I know he had a bad season, and I'm not saying he didn't, but, like, y'all are doing a little too much. We've gone a little, you know, we've veered off into cuckoo land. Let's come back to reality. Like Odegaard's not some bum. Um, Allow it, Jess. No one defends Martinelli anymore. Yes, they fucking do. Why bringing up Nelly when we're talking about Odegaard? The reason why I'm bringing it up is because when people talk about Nelly, they usually start with the system. This is like very simple things that I see all the time. If the system is impacting Martinelli so much that he's poor for 2 seasons, then shouldn't the same be applied to Odegaard? You know, why is the system only affecting one player? The system affects everyone, but only 1 or 2 people get any sort of like excuses. It's excuses for Odegaard, but it's a top reason why Martinelli is being held back. That's what I'm saying. So from my perspective, it's of course the system is impacting Odegaard. It's impacting Martinelli and it's impacting Saka. It's impacting everyone. The system from an attacking standpoint is not good enough for anyone. And ever since we've changed from it, everyone's production has gone down except for maybe Saka's, but even he doesn't look the same as he did in 22, 23. And that's my point. That's why I'm bringing it up. I think 60% of our fans are tired of Nelly. The system is built around Havertz. That's the problem. But yeah, I think Ethan is definitely going to be had a good enough season where Arsenal are going to prioritize his development over bringing in somebody that's going to make sure that he gets less time than he even got this season. So I don't know, guys. I don't know. Was Ethan good or was he not? You know, should he have been starting over Odegaard or does he need a loan? Like what is it? You know, because you're talking out of both sides. I didn't read that comment. Hold on, where did it go? Last summer, we warned only having Ethan behind our 2 most creative players, adding Dowman to the supporting cast on the right-hand side simply won't be enough unless Arteta is a different man now. But this is my point. This is why I'm saying that you still need to get a right winger. You know, I think because Ethan was also substituting in for Saka and because Raheem Sterling was a fucking joke. So essentially what we're replacing is what Raheem Sterling should have been. Ethan was fine. There was nothing wrong with what Ethan gave us this season. There was never a point where I felt like Ethan was playing and I was like, fuck, we really need to, like, there was never a time. There was only like a couple of games where I felt like, okay, it looks like the season is starting to catch up on him. But for the most part, I just felt like Ethan really gave us a lot more than I would have ever thought he would have given us. The amount of goals and production that he was giving us during that time where we didn't have anyone, where everyone was injured, to me was like, yeah, this kid is really, really good. But he's not a right winger. And I think that's where we can bring in somebody to replace Sterling. And then that alleviates the pressure on Ethan. And then Max Dowman is just an extra. He's just an extra cherry on top, another player that we're giving some additional minutes here and there to make sure that he signs a new deal. Because if we lose that talent, people are going to be spitting up blood. They'll be spitting up blood. They will be spitting up blood if Max is like, you know what? I'm too good for this under 21 shit. I'm gonna go to Barcelona instead. You know? I don't know if Dowman can play at Premier League level and needs a preseason tour. We're gonna see him in preseason. I prefer having both Ethan and Odegaard in the same lineup, like Foden and De Bruyne. We don't play like that. We don't play like that. And every time that we've tried to play 2 number 10s, it's not looked right because Arteta doesn't give them creative freedom to go forward. Somebody always has to be like a box crasher or, you know, the left. I saw it with ESR very early on that when he was trying to integrate him into midfield, all he would really get to do instead, because you know what ESR is really good at is getting the ball turning and progressing the ball forward. Arteta would have him back to goal while passing back to our defenders. He would never get the ball and turn and go. And that's by design. That's not because like ESR cannot turn and go. We know he can. It's because Arteta does his left center mid is not a creative position. You know, it's just not a creative position. And I'm not sure why it's changed. I'm not sure why he's decided to go this route. But everyone who plays there, regardless of their abilities, tends to be less of a feature on the ball than the player on the right. And that's just what it is. Um, who lost patience with Wanyeri? I don't know, because 1 minute he's the best thing and needs to be playing every minute, and then the next minute he's not good enough at all. So I don't really know what we're talking about here. Turkey and Reinders are both specialists at picking up spaces in the final third unmarked and scoring from range. Rodri does this well also. Against Sheffield, Southampton, we've tried it. It just Arteta doesn't really he doesn't lean on it as much as I feel like he should. In my opinion, we need to move on from Odegaard. I don't know if he has what it takes, to be honest. Hope I'm proven wrong. Well, you're probably not going to get your wish. He's literally our captain, so I don't know what to tell you. Need to move on from one of our better players because he had a bad season is just yeah. Let's see. Of course, everyone needs to compartmentalize their feelings about the club, but doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. Time for a summer vacation. Exactly, Jess. I'll never forget my excitement to see ESR and Odie play together, only to be completely shocked at what unfolded. But I'm like, I don't know how it's like we've been asking about being more creative or playing a different system, but Arteta's signings are giving you all indication of how he envisions this team. We're going to be watching City play with Reinders and Wirtz, and Arsenal fans are going to be mad that Odegaard is not Wirtz when that's not how he's meant to play in the system, and that's not how Arteta envisions our system. He wants two more defensive-minded. He wants Declan Rice to be an attacking mid in our system. So it's just, I think in this system, the best that we can do is hope that we bring in profiles that elevate that system to the best it can be, because it's never going to be like playing with Rodri. Sorry, I didn't mean Wirtz. Sorry. But it's not going to be like playing with Rodri, Shirky, and Reinders. It's just not going to be. And so I get that we're looking at what City's doing and we're looking at what Liverpool's doing and we want to copy and paste it, but we're not going in that route. We're getting Zubamendi. Our marquee signing is Declan Rice and our captain is Odegaard. If that equation is not clear enough for you, I don't know how much clearer it needs to get. That is our midfield. So from there, how do we add more creativity into the team? You make sure that left wing can create. And I think that's why they're obsessed with the idea of Rodrigo, because he's more of like a creative midfielder on the wing. And he can also score goals. That's the only way that you're injecting more creativity into this team. Arteta is not Wenger, and he's not going to just keep doing what Pep is doing, Let's see. Brendan said, did y'all see what Odegaard assists for Holland? We just need a bully of a striker. No, because he doesn't assist. He's not creative, and we need to sell. This player literally has the most assists in World Cup qualifying and is leading his team to a World Cup, something that when's the last time they've been in a World Cup? And people are actively telling me to my face that this player is not creative. Bruh. Reinders won't work against the big teams unless Rodri covers all the ground. Against the smaller teams, City will kill it with Reinders. And I feel like most teams that they're going to play up against, that lineup is going to beat them. We have kind of built our system around the big games and have forgotten that we need other tools to beat the small teams. We don't have a system that allows us to be more creative and or put a lot of pressure on the smaller teams when they sit back in a block. And that's where, like you guys are saying, that it'd be nice to have a system where we could play with double 10s, but it doesn't work when Arteta doesn't allow those two number 10s to be number 10s, because he's so scared to concede that he doesn't allow those players to just try to make those risky passes and it not work out, or try to dribble through the block and it not work out. It doesn't work, so I don't know how we're going to change how we're going to attack these deep blocks, because the way that we're going to do it is not really going to be through dribbling or passing through. It's going to be taking more advantage of the crosses that we spam, and that's going to come with a better striker. 100%, our striker needs to be the type of striker and our wingers need to be able to put in good deliveries. Rodrigo will help with that, and Sesko will help with that, but if you guys think we're going to play with double 10s and Arteta is gonna allow those 10s to be creative and not have to do any tracking back and just leave, like, a DM by himself and the center backs by them, maybe when's the last time you seen him do that? We play every game like a semifinal, so much pressure, playing percentage football. I don't know about that. Pep has a knack of turning midfielders to world-class players. I mean, I feel like I don't know if feel like they'll struggle against big sides or anything like that, but I do think that that particular lineup is going to devour almost every single team, you know? City just have they have a monopoly over the league, and they're gonna win 99% of the games most of the time, so nothing has really changed. City had 1 down year, where they let their team get a little bit too old, and they were, I think, feeling the repercussions of their success, essentially, not being able to get up for a fight again, and then they lost their best player. So nothing has really changed with City. They've always had really good attacking players. They've always been able to monopolize the league, so nothing has really changed. Um, TK says the system was designed around Raya. Now we are celebrating Golden Gloves year in and year out. Sick of it. For me, I love Odegaard, but last season he frustrated me. He couldn't find the passes because of how static our attack was. No runners, and he didn't take risks with his shooting. Next season, I mean, if everybody's risk adverse, is it the player? Is it the system? I'm just asking you guys because most of our team doesn't shoot. Most of our team is not instinctual. Most of our team does not move. So is that one player or the whole team, or is it the manager? Is it the system? I don't know. I admire how other teams move linked to a player publicly, and within a short period of time, they're holding up the shirts. Our transfers have to have drama. Don't trust them after the summer. How people do know Reinders won't work against a big team. People forget Pep dominated before with David Silva, Bernardo Silva, and Arso Fernandinho as a DM. There's a way that we could play with a single DM and Odegaard and another more attack-minded, but Arteta doesn't want to play that way. So it's not that we can't play that way, is that we don't. And he envisions the team to have 2 8s and a 6 rather than 2 10s and a 6. City are going to be playing with essentially a 10-8, a 10, and a 6. We're going to be playing with a 6, a 6-8, and 8. It's just the way that he wants to do things. City's greatest strength is fear. Even when they were poor last season, teams were still scared. The guy literally can't use his right foot. I'm sorry, I can't rate an attacking player that's incapable of using your weak foot on at least a basic level. His mindset is weak and he's not good enough. Well, have fun watching him next season because he's going to probably start every single game. He's our captain, so you'll be sitting there fuming. I'm going to be excited to watch my captain play. I love Odegaard, so I'm not in the camp of the hate Odegaard camp. It just feels like a waste of time. Odegaard knows we lack attacking quality. That's why he hasn't been risking a lot. The true potential of Odegaard comes when he's playing with Haaland. Also remember, like at the back end of last season, not this season, but the season prior, he had the most chances created in the top 5 leagues. And that's essentially how he became our player of the season because he was absolutely cooking during that time. This is a player that does like I've never seen anybody like the opinion of a player be changed so quickly off of the back of one season that everything else that they've done has basically been erased because people are like, well, this is who he is now, even though he doesn't play like that for Norway and he's never played like that for us before. He also tore ligaments in his ankle, and people are, oh, he's so shit. I'm like, I really do feel like we're going to be in a situation about 10 games in where people are going to be pretending like they didn't say these things. I would sell to Odegaard for Palmer. Well, have fun with that. Actually, you can go be a Chelsea fan then. If you don't like our players, go be a Chelsea fan. Like, I don't know what to tell y'all. How is the best midfielder of last year getting more hate than Martinelli? I don't know. Odegaard 23-24 should have had 20 assists if our players could finish. I mean, I was there. I remember, the amount of chances that were missed. But at the same time, like, it's not that I think with Odegaard is my main gripe with him is probably his he has a really good long shot, and I would like him to use it more, but he tends to wanna pass more or maybe delays the shot. And the one season that he didn't do that, he got 15 goals, but his goals have dried up because he doesn't take the shot. He needs to back his ability to score goals a little bit more. That's pretty much my main gripe with Odegaard. It's I know he's creative, like, you know, I don't know what to tell you guys. And he's also creative despite having to do so much more work than anybody else. Like, I would love for him to just have a free roll, but he's not gonna get it. He needs to shoot. Like, he really needs to shoot the ball and stop trying to find the perfect pass or, like, not pass because he's afraid he's gonna lose it. But that fear has been ingrained by the manager because if we lose the ball, it's like, an emergency. Um, let's see. At some point, Pep was taking the piss. He had a front six of Sané, Sterling, Aguero, Bernardo Silva, David Silva, Gundogan, KDB. We could never do that. Um, it's just not it's not his thing, you know? I just don't see Arteta going in that direction. He just got into his groove at the end of the season. I'm confident he'll bounce back last season. I look forward to the conversations because I know it's gonna be a I always rated him. No. Or attacking players judged by stats and defensive shifts. We used to judge them by eye test. Guess football has changed a lot. Um, let's see. So yeah, let's see. Brendan, when we play defenses, focus on Saka. So we need someone world class to the left, and maybe we might improve. Listen, that's why I'm desperate for us to get like Rodrigo, somebody that they're gonna really feel like they need to watch because they won't just be able to the the fact that our left-hand side has basically been a dumpster fire for 2 seasons has made it even more difficult for our right-hand side, and unfortunately, they play every game, full 90s. Ben White, Odegaard, and Saka have been broken down so badly because they are carrying the burden of the entire team and how we attack and getting goals. Left-hand side does nothing, you know, and that's pretty much been how it's been for 2 seasons now. So at some stage, we need to balance it out and feel like one, we can attack through the middle and also that we can attack on the left hand side. But I just don't know how you do that without a good left wing, you know. So I'm sorry. It just need to. Um, let's see. Arteta will have to change. Please do not make Rodrigo a touchline winger. Um, let's see. Odie won't return to his previous. He will improve further as long as the club does what is necessary for several years. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we just be watching like completely different games and completely different things because I don't know if you guys do not some people just do not see how badly the left-hand side, it just is not a thing. It doesn't exist. It's choppy, it's weird. No matter who's really over there, it's never fluid. And the right-hand side is so heavily burdened. And it's not just, oh, it's Saka and it was Ben White as well, which I do think is a big reason why Ben is so broken down now and needed to get the surgery. He had to play every single game because there was nobody else like the right hand side, if it did not work, we did not score. All the creativity comes off of that side. The spaces in between defenders on that side is this big, and the space between them and the goal is this big. Because you can't even give it to the left hand side and say, you know what, you cook up something today. You know what, you take the burden off today. It doesn't work. And that's not even like shade to Declan or anything like that, but he's just not going to be able to pick that pass. And Martinelli is just too limited. So, and also Trossard, you know, he has I don't know, Trossard has the one day world class, next day shit. Like sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. Like he's definitely that player. So, left hand side needs surgery. Um, would you agree that it's the inverted fullback that may be the issue on the left, no overlapping runs like our right-hand side? I mean, it's like we have one less midfielder. I think when Zinchenko was playing there, he was so influential in all of our buildup and everything that we did on that side that it just made it look easy because essentially your midfield ended up being like a box of Granite, Zinni, Party, and O. And those were all super technical players that could pick a pass and we're just really good at moving the ball and taking advantage of the overload. Not to mention, then you also had Jesus sometimes dropping in. Now our midfield box is more of MLS, Partey, Odegaard, and Rice. That's significantly different. And that's not to say that Rice and MLS don't add something. They add more of like a physical attribute, but it's not the same as Zinni and Xhaka. It's completely different. And so we're just weakened on that side because it's like we're trying to do the same things, but you can't execute it the same as you did with the other players. You just can't. So I think the inverted fullback is a reason because we still try to invert but they don't have the same influence that they did as Zinni did, but we still kind of expect them to a little bit. It's the inverted fullback is a little bit of a thing. Like I do feel like we should ditch it and just play a flat four and just call it a day and allow the midfielders to midfield, but that would require the left center mid to check in to work, and the left center mid never checks in from a footballing perspective. You know, it's not the inverted fullback on the left after MLS outstanding season. It's Martinelli is the problem. It's just a different vibe. I think it's not about MLS being a problem. It's about the way that position works now. Zinchenko used to take almost as many touches as Odegaard. MLS is not getting to the same touches as Odegaard. I think we're forgetting the influence that you have when you have a lot of high touch midfielders and you can create an overload in midfield. We don't have that. There's less touches on the left-hand side than there ever was. Both Zinni and Xhaka were on the ball a lot. Xhaka was taking like 60 to 80 touches a game, and that's been like halved now. So, yeah, I think and it's what they did with those passes, what they could create with those passes. You know, MLS gives us more of the ball progression than Zinni did. And what I really like about what MLS gives us is he wins us free kicks farther up the pitch, and he opens up avenues on that side, but it's just a different vibe altogether. This is why I'm not long for MLS to be a left back because we should just play in a flat back four and then utilize what he does best in midfield because it could be so useful to us on the left. But Arteta's not interested in that. Teams for so long have simply just thrown bodies at the right-hand side of the team. It's crazy how long it's taken for Arsenal to address it. Thank you. It's just wild. I'm like, they just flood the right-hand side, and then we begrudge the players if they can't break down 7 players, and the left-hand side is just sitting over there filing their fucking nails and do it and just waiting for the ball to come across to them for them to miss chances. Like, it's just wild to me. Um, we need competition for Saka. Ethan won't make the cut. I think we need another right winger. I don't know if it's like Saka needs competition because he's so good, like no matter what. I never see a moment where I think Saka's just like not giving a fuck and he needs somebody to push him because he's not giving the effort. But I do think you do want to make sure that you can rest him, especially off of the back of such a horrific injury. We want to make sure that we're protecting him and we're giving the most opportunity to get back up to full strength. And it'd be nice if that right winger could also play other positions. I would love that. Rodrigo would take a lot of touches. Funny enough, he would take a lot of touches. Like, you need players that can create football. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like people that create things. I think I can't explain it, but when I look at our left-hand side, they're less likely to get the ball and then have an action and then have another action off of the back of that. It's usually just more like very simple passes, either sideways or backwards, so that we can shove it down to the right-hand side. And then they have to figure out how to break down 6 or 7 players. And I just feel like we need somebody on the left-hand side that can pick their head up and pick a pass or pass and move, figure out how to get central, figure out how, like somebody more of a thinker on that side. And that's not to say like anybody on that side is like dumb or anything, but the brain power is definitely on the right-hand side. Agree with you, Jess. It's the position, not the player. MLS was my player of the season, followed by Rice. Yeah, it's to me, it's not about MLS being a problem or him not being as good as Zinni, because there's things that we had with Zinni that we no longer have to face with MLS anymore. So there is a give and take there, but it cannot be understated how influential Zinni was in those midfield positions. And so we're finding it harder to access central spaces to find, our number 10 central between the lines because he's so far out right. There's just so many different things happening now, and it's not about MLS. It's just not. MLS is a great player, and we're so lucky to have him. Let's see. Zen Odie would take turns having the most touches, but nowadays people praise Saliba for being on the ball so much and having a high retention of the ball. I really do think people should look, like, not from a perspective of how do we get back there, but just to understand how much things have changed. Zinni was taking like 100 touches a game. He was taking like 100 touches a game. Like, just like, but they were in different positions. Zinni was doing it from deep, and Odegaard was doing it in between the lines, behind their midfield and in front of their back line. It was just a completely different vibe. When you look at videos or like clips of 2022, 2023, it was rare that you saw Odegaard and Saka standing right next to each other. Odegaard was central, and we just haven't been able to replicate that. And no matter what number 10 you want, even if you don't want Odegaard there, if we cannot figure out a way to get our creative players central, we'll never thrive, So we just need to figure that out. And one of the ways that you can do that is to distract the team from just being able to sit on the right-hand side and to get them to have to focus on the left. It'll open up space. If you feel like you actually need to mark the person on the left because they can hurt you, then the entire team shifts over, the spaces get bigger, like it's just a different vibe. If you want 100 touches, look at Dowman. This is the last saloon for Odegaard, another poor season, and we must sell. Arsenal are not going to sell Odegaard. Maybe it'll be your last saloon, but you're going to be very disappointed if you think Odegaard's getting sold this next summer. Like, come on, be real with yourself for 5 seconds. Do you trust that the club would get Gyokeres and Sesko for the amount of money they're quoted for? I think we need both. Havertz is not good enough. We're not getting both. And I'd said this earlier that buying 2 strikers and only one can play at a time is a super waste of money when we need a left wing. We are not backed by a nation state, and we know that there is a budget. There is no unlimited funds. So you have to assume that if you buy both Gyokeres and Sesko for 60 to 70 million, that will mean that we're not getting something. And if that means that you don't get left wing, now what you have is Martinelli starting and a striker and then another one on the bench. How many goals do you need from your backup striker? 15 maybe? Havertz can get that. As much as I don't like Havertz and he's not my favorite player, he can get 10 to 15 goals as a backup striker. So wasting the money on 2 strikers and not addressing left wing would be a cardinal sin. It would be almost the worst thing that we could do. Buying 2 strikers just for people to feel like we're going big and we're being serious when left wing is still going to be inhabited by Martinelli and Trossard is just ridiculous. Because that if you buy 2 strikers, a left wing is not coming in. It's not unlimited funds. We're going to get a defender, So to me, that doesn't make sense at all. It makes absolutely no sense to me. But, I understand the sentiment of wanting to feel like Arsenal are being serious. And, getting rid of Havertz and bringing in 2 strikers would make people feel like we're being serious. But there's a reality to the window that we need to tap into. No left wing would be suicide for next season. It just would be. So we must. Didn't we offer Sesko left wing at a point? I don't know. I didn't see those rumors. We need to buy both Sesko. We don't need to buy both Sesko and Gyokeres. People need to stop playing career mode on FIFA. I think maybe, there's a world like next summer that we can get another striker in. Because Jesus will be gone, hopefully, because he should go in Jan. Realistically, there should be no remontada for him or anybody doing up fire in the belly. It should be, wow, you've gotten fit just quick enough that we can play you in the Carabao Cup games. And and now we can put you on the market in January and then add Max Dowman in your spot, right? In January and sell. But I think, you know, Havertz is just not somebody that I sense is going to go away anytime soon. And unless we have a different manager, I would imagine that this Sesko Havertz combination is going to be a combination for multiple seasons, whether we like it or not. I don't know. Maybe we could bring in a striker next summer, but I wouldn't bet on it. Arteta to submit first offer, Arsenal to submit first offer for Gyokeres. Where? If this is record Portugal, it needs to be somebody serious. Because I don't be believing them, because they've said we're gonna sign like 1 million players, and we ain't never sold not got a single one of those players, not one. What am I seeing? I don't see anything about that. Is it from somebody serious, or is it more Portuguese things? Yeah, the stuff going on with Gyokeres is actually quite dark as well. Like the way that they've reneged on him, and they're destroying their relationship with somebody that I wouldn't say he carried them to titles, but he did. Like, it just shows like there's just no loyalty in the game. There's just no loyalty in the game. It would be funny to watch United fans panic though, because they are panicking. They're panicking because I think they thought that they were gonna get him. I still think they will, to be honest, but this stuff with Gyokeres is so dark. And this is why you can't do gentlemen's agreements. You cannot do gentlemen's agreements. So CNN Portugal is saying Gyokeres' agent is now in a meeting with Arsenal's owners. Talks have now entered a formal stage. They weren't before. Gyokeres has always wanted to play for Arsenal. So, we shall see. But listen, RB Leipzig better not fuck around. They better not fuck around, because we could, pull out of the Sesko deal and you'll be sitting there assed out, bitch. So you better lower that fucking price. Like, hello? I would love for us to do that to somebody. I can't even lie. They're fucking around, and then we just pull out the deal and just go somewhere else and buy someone, and they're sitting there like, I would love that. Like, just some gangster shit. Like, I love that. If United get Mbomo, Gyokeres, along with Cunha, they could finish above us, no joke. It seems that we're having issues with payment for Sesko. I don't understand why we just don't pay up. He's supposed to be our long-term striker. The reason why we can't just pay up, Joseph, is because as much as, again, we are not made of unlimited money. We know the cronkies are tight, so we have a budget. And it's also the principle. If he was available for 50 million last summer, and his performances, not necessarily his performances, but he hasn't improved 30 million pounds more, has he? So bending over and giving Leipzig 30 more million for a player that hasn't improved by 30 million, to warrant that, is just us being exactly what we talk about Chelsea and United being, just throwing money left and right, And so I think Arsenal need to stand firm on the fee for Sesko to be somewhere around 60 million, because they also know that they can go get Gyokeres for something around that amount as well. And so you can't just bend to the will just because it's a player that you like. It doesn't create a good reputation in the market to be the type of team that doesn't stick to their principles. Sesko is worth about 60 million pounds. That's it. He was worth about 50 last summer. There's no way that he's increased to 80 million. There's just no way. So just bending to their will sets a bad precedent for future deals, but equally it also will impact our summer window now. Because again, we're not made of money. You spend 30 more million on Sesko, that's going to impact your left wing. It might impact our ability to get a right wing. So we can't just bend. It would be ridiculous to just bend, especially when you have another option that you're almost equally okay with getting. You know, they're in a position where they can't leverage. You know, to me, you need to hold firm. We're not made of money. You know, it's just frivolous. Ain't it funny that top tier clubs are not in negotiations with the most informed striker in Europe? I don't get it with the numbers he put up last 2 seasons. He should be signed now. I mean, I brought this up multiple times that as much as people are saying that, you know, Gyokeres is just like the only choice that we should go after, and they're not mentioning any of the cons of it, is being disingenuous. They both have to me, very clear ups and downs, pros and cons. And Gyokeres, the only thing that really scares me about him is that somebody that's a scout in the game said that, quote, he's somebody that would make West Ham good, or be a good striker for West Ham. And I was like, well, we're not West Ham. That's scary, right? And then nobody else is going for him, and everybody needs a striker. Liverpool are going for Ekitike, and so is Chelsea. And the only other team that's trying to beat us to Gyokeres is United, and we know that that's mostly due to Amorim's, you know, history with him. So I feel like the bigger teams are afraid of what he's going to look like in our league, which is a very valid critique. It's a very valid reason to be concerned. And people acting like there's no concerns is, I feel like, just people that just want to see signings come in and get the player that the rivals want us to get because they're afraid that their group chat is going to make fun of them if we get Sesko. But in reality, like, everybody has concerns, because as soon as United became linked with Gyokeres, they were a lot less excited about that player. A lot of their fans started to raise the same concerns. There are concerns, you know. If Leipzig don't humble themselves, I'm never touching Red Bull again. Boycott Red Bull. ISNG says surely Saudi move for Gyokeres. Let's see. Double S16, you're more than welcome to voice your frustration, but we can just limit the F-bombs and all that. Like, I get it that you're frustrated, and we haven't signed anyone, which is a lie, but we haven't signed anyone and everybody else is signing and you're panicking. But calm down. You don't have to, you know, flood the chat, and you don't have to throw out all those, you know, profanity. Like, come on, it's okay. I'm the only person allowed to throw out profanity here. Leipzig must remember the Werner deal, nosedive. I put a cheeky bid for Oberdorf and try to get Smith from Liverpool. I think it'd definitely help our chances of winning the WSL. I mean, I'm hoping that I want us to go for Salma Parawalu. She's available from Barcelona. I'd love to get her. Of course, get Hines from Liverpool. That'd be great. There's plenty of players we can get. Let's see. We have been chasing Sesko for 2 years. He has been delaying to come to Arsenal. He hasn't really been delaying, though. There's reports out that he's frustrated about the fact that Leipzig are not adhering to the gentleman's agreement that they had. Why are we ignoring very readily available information here? He's not stalling coming to us. He wants to come to us. Leipzig are playing hardball on a valuation that Arsenal are not okay with. Why are we acting like Sesko doesn't want to come now? There's very, like, visible information. Like, what are we talking about here? Let's see. MA says, other clubs stressing that they will sign no one would then wish that they had signed to Sesko better than signing no one. If Sesko says, I only want Arsenal, Leipzig have to sell, right? But I think that's one of the issues is that there's nobody else really going after Sesko because Sesko wants to come to us. And that to me is one of the best negotiation tactics that you can have is having a player that's dead set on coming to you. Because once you have that, then you have all the leverage. And I think that's Leipzig's problem because, again, the reason why they wanted him to sign a new deal, they gave him that gentleman's agreement. He wanted to leave last summer. They gave him the gentleman's agreement, basically saying, like, okay, this is going to be your release clause, but we'll let you go for less to make him stay so that they can try to get a little bit more money. And they can't get the valuation that they want. They want to sell him for like 80 million pounds, you guys. 80 million. Like that is ridiculous when last summer we could have gotten him for 50. And so there's a gentleman's agreement there that they're not adhering to. He's pissed because he wants to leave. And so that's the problem that we have now is we're going back and forth with Leipzig about this foolish valuation that they have, and we absolutely should not pay it. And if they don't want to come down, then we can just go get Gyokeres because we have him sitting there. I feel like it's very readily available information. And I've also said it multiple times, but the constant like, he doesn't want to come and we're just fucking around and we're just sitting around doing nothing and everybody else is signing players and we're not. But you know that we're negotiating with RB Leipzig right now. It just feels to me like, what are we doing? Like, Leipzig are holding him hostage. This is why I hate gentlemen's agreements, utter nonsense, which is both Gyokeres and Sesko have fucked themselves over because now both of their clubs want to sell because the market has been such that if you're a half decent player, you're going for like 80 million. These players there's so many players that have left certain clubs, especially like in the Portuguese league and in the Bundesliga that have gone for like these huge valuations, and clubs are not really going for the okie doke anymore. They're not going for the okie doke anymore. They're like, Frankfurt won 100 million for Ekitike and he scored like 15 goals this season. So clubs should absolutely stick to their valuations to a certain extent, especially if you have a target that you can go for. If Leipzig don't get the price that they want, 100% keep him an extra year, considering 4 years still on the deal. If Sesko isn't happy, he shouldn't have signed a new deal. It's really that simple. But I think that's why he signed a new deal and then did the gentleman's agreement. He signed the new deal as a good faith. A lot of players do this, sign a new deal in good faith, like essentially like what Liverpool fans wanted. Liverpool fans wanted Trent to sign a new deal so that they could still get money for him when they moved him on. And he didn't do that because of this exact situation. Because usually what comes with the new deal when you want to leave is a gentleman's agreement that they never do. They never do it. And that's why I back Trent's decision for not signing a new deal, because do you really think Liverpool would have just let him go for cheap had he had signed a new deal? No, of course not. So I don't think it's so much that Sesko doesn't really want to leave and he signed a new deal because he's just in love with being at Leipzig. He wants to leave. He signed that new deal in good faith and did the gentleman's agreement so he can get out lower than the release clause, and he's getting fucked over. No more gentlemen's agreements. No more gentlemen's agreements. Marco says, can someone check if PSG has a sell-on clause for the future Ekitike moves? I don't know about that, but we shall see. Because maybe that's a reason why they're holding tight to this. They want 100 million euros. That's expensive. It's expensive. That's expensive for a player that scored like 15 goals. And I know that a lot of Arsenal fans would prefer Ekitike over, Sesko, but Ekitike only scored 2 more goals than Sesko this season. So that valuation is outrageous. It's not like your 150 million gets you Wirtz in this market. So the fuck. As long as it's lighthearted humor, not the kind of nasty stuff that affects players' mental health, I would hope. Players need to understand that this gentleman's agreement means nothing. Poor work from the agent. Exactly. Kane thought he had the gentleman's agreement when Man City wanted him. Nope. And that's what I'm saying. It's not really about the player. A lot of players, like they trust their agent to do things on their behalf. And young players especially, like, think about what happened with Husam Awar, um, have bad agents that do bad things, and so I don't necessarily feel like this is a Sesko problem. I don't think Sesko's sitting there like, "I don't wanna go to Arsenal, fuck them, like, I'm trying to stay." Like, 'cause if so, then we just wouldn't be in these negotiations, but I just feel like the clubs never really go with the gentlemen's agreements because when it comes down to it, especially because they made that gentlemen's agreement before they didn't make Europe or didn't make Champions League. Now their summer is completely different. They need to sell and they also want to sell for a lot more because they're outside of Champions League. So things change a lot from the time that you do this gentleman's agreement to where you are now. And so players, no more gentlemen's agreements, please. um, Mudrik's agent is the worst I've ever seen. Gentlemen's agreements are like promises in Football Manager. No one upholds them. It's just ridiculous. I don't know why they keep doing it. Then that would also affect their performances and confidence. Players need to stop pinky promising their clubs. Are you going to watch the Club World Cup games? Yes, I am. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Of course I'm going to watch the Club World Cup games. Hopefully I'll get a chance to go to a couple, because I worked with FIFA on some of the, like, advertisements and some content with them for the Club World Cup, so hopefully I'll be able to go to some games, but yeah, I'm actually excited for it. I know, like, you know, the players aren't particularly excited, and if I was a player, I wouldn't be excited about it because I wanna go to sleep and relax my body, and this is another thing that I think I wanted to put out here, while we're chatting is Arsenal need to get this transfer window spot on because we have an advantage that City and Chelsea do not have, and that's the advantage of not having to play these additional games. From now, our players get to sit on the beach until about July 23rd, you know? So, yeah, I think not having to play those additional games means that maybe they'll be a little bit more on the tired side. It's not a surefire thing. There's a chance that they just do fine, but you have to imagine that after, you had the Euros and then you went straight from the Euros into this last season, and now you're going after this season, you're going straight to international games, and then after international games, you've gone into the Club World Cup. Yeah, yeah, we have an advantage of not being in these Club World Cup games, so we need to utilize that for sure. Um, let's see, City and Liverpool already have made better transfers. Also, City getting Nypan. I'll be honest, I don't really care about Nypan or whatever, but yeah, City and Liverpool have already made better transfers, but the transfer window is not over yet. So, if we still are going to make our striker signing. Hopefully we get Rodrigo or another left wing. So I get it, but everything about what we're doing can't just be about what Liverpool and City are doing. Like, we need to do what's best for us. And I think somebody made a really, really good point earlier that we've been competing with them with a really bad attack. So if we could just get the attackers that we need and we add it to this really good defense, we'll still be in the mix. We still have to get the attack, but I think people are really focused on what everybody else is doing, and it's making them lose their minds. And if you do that, you're like, literally your brain is going to explode. Literally, you will not make it through the summer window. If your head is like, Chelsea doing what? City's doing what? Liverpool's doing what? Villa's doing what? Newcastle's doing what? Like, you're not going to make it, so I'm more focused on what we're doing, but let's see. Working with FIFA, but don't join the dark side, please. No, I'm not not working with FIFA in terms of I'm not working with them, but I created some content for the tournament, and if you want your girl to get some work for the World Cup, then I need to do these types of things. He may not leave Sporting then if they play hardball. If I was him, I would be nasty. They'd be like, "Oh, preseason. What preseason? I'm not going to no damn preseason. I'm not doing no preseason." I'd get nasty. I'd be calling Piers Morgan right the fuck now, or whoever's there, Piers Morgan over there to do an interview right the fuck now. I'd make it so bad. I'm sorry. Yeah. Benjamin Sesko is growing concerned about RB Leipzig's demands. Sesko is aware that Arsenal are still in talks with Victor Gyokeres and could turn their attention back to the Swede if talks don't progress, which is what I was telling you. Sesko is probably about to kill himself because, he's 1 second away from seppuku because he has the move right there. He was the chosen one, and now, and I want Berta to be like, I want him to be like fucked up about it. You have until blank time to do this or we're gone. Like, like, I don't know what to tell you. The worst thing about the Club World Cup is that the first ever edition is in the US, a country where football isn't even the main sport. Plus, it's a nightmare for the countries that football means a lot. That's fair enough. FIFA are a bit clueless, thinking they would sell tickets with a game involving I think I think there's a good like argument, a very solid argument that they needed to do it somewhere else. I think the US is a great attraction, and I think they anticipate people wanting to come to the US, but with the cost of travel and the cost of the tickets, it's just very out of touch for where people are in their lives right now. And this is not like a must have. This is not the World Cup, like something that people have been saving up for their entire lives. Like, people save up for their lives to go to the World Cup. People are not saving up for this. So you need to make it attainable. And a lot of people do not know who these clubs are. And so it's a cute idea that I personally do really like. I just think it's coming in a really poor time where people are desperate. They just were in the Euros. A lot of these teams were just in the Euros, the Euros and Copa America. They're fucking tired, man. So going into this in a tournament that, like, the stadiums may not even be full, it's going to be tough, so I know the players are going to be professional, but at the same time, I would not be that surprised if there was like an element of like unseriousness to the tournament, and that's all on FIFA. They need to boost the interest for World Cup, and the World Cup is like next summer, and I know as much anytime the World Cup is not in a place where people want it to be, there's always like is there any buzz for it? Because right before the Qatar World Cup, people were saying there was no buzz for it. Nobody was really going. Nobody really cared. I was there. People gave a fuck. I was there. I was in Qatar. It was not dead at all. People, it was a great World Cup. I'm not even gonna lie. So of course there will be a buzz for the World Cup, but the Club World Cup is just a completely different animal. It's just not something that people are particularly well versed in. The teams are not teams that you really know about for a lot of people. So, and it's in a place where people are not going to get to know. Like, it's easy for Americans to get behind something where you're going for your country and you can be a patriot for a couple of weeks, but getting behind a tournament with teams from Asia and Africa and Brazil and places, not like those places are bad, but they just don't have they don't know what those are. They don't know what's going on. Blaze says, yeah, it's true. Players already play more games. Yeah, man. Football fatigue is real. Anything new about Rodrigo? Just that we're waiting. Like, Orenstein has even said that we're waiting on his response. I'm seeing this thing that Xabi plans to make Mascherano a starter immediately. And that's why Xabi told Franco that he needs to join them immediately and not wait till January. Rodrigo is definitely sliding down that pecking order. So yeah. Yeah, people are saying that we just need to put in the bid for Sesko already, but I still think that there is a little bit of people really don't understand that we can't just be giving them whatever they want. We honestly cannot do that. We just cannot bend over for Leipzig for a player that we know is probably only worth about 60 million. All my football manager wonder kids are being picked up by other clubs. I totally agree with you, Jess. I was just saying things from their point of view apart from the money. Rodrigo ain't happening. It's PR. Why would we do PR? Like, ask yourself this. I get the Isak Olise right after we lost to Villa, but why would we do the PR for Rodrigo now? What would be the gain for Arsenal? Because they're not trying to lessen the blow of anything. The season is already over. You know, once the summer started, then the it changed from Isak to then it became like Sesko and Williams. I'm trying to understand what would be the benefit of Arsenal going through the PR for Rodrigo at right now in June when, like, we haven't lost a game right now. There's no point in just putting it out. I'm trying to understand why we think every single thing is PR. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know why that doesn't feel like PR to me. I feel like the article that comes out right after we lose, yeah, maybe PR, you know, or some of the bullshit that came out about Jason Ito during the January transfer window, probably PR. But right now, Arsenal sending out information to Ornstein and Fabrizio about wanting to wait for Rodrigo, and Arteta really, really wanting him, just for us not to really be interested in him because we're just trying to what is the yeah, no. If they are balking at the Sesko price, how the fuck are they gonna pay 90 million for Rodrigo? They're not balking at the Sesko price. I feel like you guys want the club to just spend the money without any sort of thought about the repercussions of overspending for a player, as if we have unlimited funds, because they're probably not balking at the Rodrigo price, but they probably know that they need to make sure that they have enough money to actually get him, because we're not made of money. I feel like it's very strange that people think that Arsenal should just give Leipzig whatever they want. And if whatever they want is like 30 million over the valuation, then that makes sense. It just doesn't, you know, but hey, you know, there will be a bidding war for Rodrigo if he's available on the market. Bayern City also looking at a left wing, just like Steele. Arsenal won't win that. Rodrigo PR is to keep the fans engaged, hoping for more. They do this every season. You know the fucking club. I mean, I don't know. They do it every season. They don't do it every season. I think last summer was really, really devastating, and that's made people really distrustful for the club, but the summer before, there wasn't a PR, like, we wanted Declan Rice, we got him, we got Timber, we got Raya, we got Kai, which is not a player that people wanted, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's PR about Rodrigo. It doesn't feel like PR. I feel like anytime we're not gonna get a player, you guys feel insecure about our ability to get a player, you say it's PR, and I don't see them going through these lengths, you know, of actually telling journalists that we're waiting on Rodrigo. That just feels like a setup. So, yeah, but I get it. News about Rodrigo is not PR. Fabrizio and Ornstein also confirmed that Rodrigo will have a meeting with Xabi Alonso. Yeah, I mean, even when we, you know, had the Isak situation after we went out of the, we lost not when we went out of the Champions League to Bayern and then we lost to Aston Villa or whatever it was. There was never a point during the summer where David Ornstein even entertained the Isak links, you know, or Fabrizio. They both said that we really like Isak, but we'll probably go for Sesko instead. So I don't think the more like reliable journalists play into the PR because that hurts their reputation. So why would David Ornstein and Fabrizio kind of damage their reputation with Arsenal fans buying into PR? I don't know. It feels a little bit far-fetched, guys. I know that we wanna hate the club and whatever, but it just sounds stupid to me. Sorry. Um, Very strange. If it's PR, Arsenal are doing it. That's what I'm saying, Chris. If it's PR, Arsenal are doing it wrong. Like, this is not it. The only thing we need is Rodrigo only wants Arsenal. Thoughts on Mikel staying past next season if no silverware? With signings coming to fruition, Sesko, Rodrigo, and Zubi stick or twist. I mean, I would be like really not really wanting him to stay this summer if it was me making the decision, but no silverware. He needs to go at any point after now. Like, you know, um, but that's just not the reality that we're living in. He's not under any sort of pressure, I don't think, so let's see. More details on Gyokeres. This is just bullshit. His agent is currently in London negotiating with Arsenal owners to expedite the process of potential summer deal. I'm gonna wait for somebody else to say that. Emery Sexuals want him back. The fans would have to get toxic to make the Cronkies take notice, like Wenger style. Exactly. Xabi will convince Rodrigo to stay. Just wait. And if he does, then we'll move on to another target. Like, this is all based upon him actually being on the market. So if he doesn't want to go and, if he's convinced, then we'll move on to another one of our targets. I don't really see, I'm not really getting it. I'm not really getting the uproar on the Rodrigo thing right now, but that's just me. People saying we won't win battle for Rodrigo when we bought Zubimendi while other big clubs were interested, including Real Madrid. Some Arsenal fans have short memory. I mean, even Declan Rice, City wanted him. So I think we could get Rodrigo if we present the best opportunity for him, and he gets bought into it, So, yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. Shamari says at least Sane is off the market. Yes, right. None of that. Let's see. Brad, unfortunately, you telling other people to F off is not going to really work for me. So, let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna block you. Just a little on the aggressive side for me. Are you feeling the goosebumps yet, Jess? Mikel's gonna get trolled if we don't do substantial business. No goosebumps yet. But that was like one of the worst lines he could have put out there. I was like, please stop. He attracted Ozil to move. Where did Zane go in the end? I think he went to Galatasaray, right? Yeah. PTSD is real for some fans. Link to Draxler, get El Neni, link to Benzema, get Welbeck. I understand this, but I do think to a certain extent, like, we get to a point where everything is PR, nothing is going to happen. We're not going to sign any players. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do that. And I think it goes beyond even like common sense sometimes. And this is what I'm saying. Like, Rodrigo's not PR. Like, but if he does end up staying at Real Madrid, which is still a possibility, people will say, I told you Arsenal were just doing that so that we thought they were going to sign someone. And I'm like, or they probably just wanted him, but he didn't want to leave. And they wanted to look at a great market opportunity, because in reality, if it was not us and it was Chelsea that were waiting on Rodrigo and there was an opportunity for be on the market, you know what Arsenal fans would be saying? Why are we not getting into that conversation? If Rodrigo is available, or potentially available, why are we not presenting something to him as well? So Arsenal fans talk out of both sides of their mouths. Like, there's nothing really wrong with being concerned about the window and voicing your fears. but be prepared for people to come back to you with some common sense, because I feel like sometimes we go over the red line and then we just go into everything is a lie. The Arsenal don't want to sign anyone. They want to just keep everyone, and they don't want to sign anyone. They're not going to sign anybody. They just are trying to pull the wool to sell tickets. We're just going to end up with it. No, because even in the summer that we didn't get anybody, we still got people, so I don't know what to tell y'all. I don't know what to tell y'all. I don't think we're quite in push the button mode. But let's see what happens. If we go into next week and we're still doing a Sesko versus Gyokeres, then I can maybe understand that, because at that point you pull the plug on Sesko and you go with Gyokeres, probably an easier deal to get done at this stage. Because even though they want more, they still don't want as much as Sesko does, like RB Leipzig does. But we shall see. They said that this week would be really pivotal for that deal, and I think we're probably in that space now of you either come down or we leave. And I'm totally okay with them leaving and going to Gyokeres, because I like both, so it is what it is. Who are we rooting for in the Club World Cup? James, we're always rooting for chaos. When we're not involved, we're rooting for chaos. We want the worst possible scenario for our rivals. We want the underdog. We want all that shit. We want, Chelsea losing to Seattle Sounders. That's what we want. Maximum pain, maximum chaos. That's it. We don't have a team. We do chaos, He probably would have changed his mind if it wasn't, I don't know, they moved too late, contract was signed. He probably would have changed his mind if it wasn't. Some fans ain't buying into the Rodrigo news until they see a here we go, because they don't want to get hurt. Well, that's fine. Then say that. But I feel like there's a big difference between not buying into it and constantly projecting. Like, if I don't buy into something, I'm not screaming at the top of my lungs or doing capitals and they're just fucking lying to us and da-da-da-da. You're just not buying into it. There is a world where it's not PR and we just don't get him, and he just stays. I don't understand. Why can't we wait just like 2 days and see what happens? Like, I don't get it, but if you're not buying into it, that's fine. But I feel like what it is it's not that you're not buying into it. It's you want everybody to not buy it with you so that you can feel justified in maybe panicking about something that you don't have to right now. And, people want other people to panic. Nothing has happened yet. We're still waiting on his response. And I guarantee that if Chelsea was waiting on Rodrigo's response and we weren't, Arsenal fans would be saying, why are we not getting involved? And how is it giving Mudryk vibes? How is it giving Mudryk vibes? I don't get it. So is he moving or is he not? Are you not buying into it because it's PR? Or are you not buying into it because he's not going to leave? Or are you not buying into it because you think everybody else is going to take him? What is your narrative? Like, I don't really get it, because it's not similar to Mudryk at all, like in any way, shape, or form. We just need to chill for now. I'm exactly there with Josh. Like, when we were not moving at all and we didn't see anything, I understood more, because I was like, okay, why aren't we moving? We should be hearing a little bit of something. Then we started hearing things, and then it was like, okay, we're in negotiations with Sesko. That's cool. Zubamendi, here we go. Backup goalkeeper, fine, done, cool. Waiting on Rodrigo, cool, whatever. So now we're kind of like, we're in the moving zone. Now next week, then we're having new conversations, right? And if you think Xabi will convince him, then that's fine. Then we move on to another target. That's a very real possibility, but that doesn't mean that Arsenal don't want him. It's PR and we never really wanted him, but we're just trying to get the fans. Like, it doesn't mean any of that. It just means he decided to stay. Personally, I love the rumors. I get all excited regardless if we don't get the player. When there's no football, I need this Arsenal excitement. Reminds me of when we signed Rice. Yeah, I mean, it's not the last summer was definitely under this particular administration, if you want to call it, this hierarchy was an anomaly. It was definitely different than any other window that we had. There has not been a window since Arteta has been here outside of last window where we didn't buy anyone that we expected to buy. First window, Party and Gabrielle. The next window, we got 6 players. The next window, we got Gabriel Jesus, Fabio Vieira, and Zinchenko. The next window, we got Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, Raya, and Timber. The next window, we got Calafiori, Marino, and Sterling. And that was a terrible window, but we still got players. What makes you think we're not going to get anyone in this window? I'm just asking. Because there's not been a single window where we've gotten no one, and there's only been one window where we completely just did nothing. So I'm just saying common sense has to prevail at some stage, that we may not get the exact players that we're looking for at right now. And Rodrigo may not come to fruition because it's something that if he does become available, we want to be front of the line, and we don't know yet. But the idea that we're not going to get anyone, and that Arsenal are putting out PR about Rodrigo, that would not serve them or help them in any way to make the fans happy. By the way, no fan is like happy about Rodrigo right now. Everybody is waiting with bated breath. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to get things done. And I know we probably won't get every single player that I personally want, but I think it's weird to be saying that we're not going to get anyone. Like, the Sterling window is what we've always done. Wait, hold on real quick. Okay. He's probably not used to the windows. Off topic, when the Ukraine war is over, I'd like someone to do a documentary on the Mudryk transfer. I mean, they wrote like a million articles about it. I mean, they were doing paid articles from The Athletic, and I know Blue Co obviously was pushing this out. Bowley and them wanted to, you know, paint a picture around Chelsea and how they have the ability to, because at that point, I feel like we were top of the league, and very clearly so, because this was before we collapsed, right? So, yeah, I think they really wanted to push out the narrative that, this down and out Chelsea could still take players off of the supposed best team in the league, right? And they were paying for athletic articles to be made, and they were constantly having people talk about it. I remember they sat down with several journalists and talked about it. So, unfortunately, I am not interested in the transfer. I lived through it too many times. In fact, it happened on my birthday. The hijack happened on my birthday, and I had to go to a dinner with Neeks, Lias, Tell was there, a couple of Chelsea fans, and it was not fun. I think we'll get things done. The only problem is I doubt majority of fans will agree with the personnel, which, a long time ago, I told myself that if I was going to make it through the transfer window, I need to be less obsessed with this specific player and more concerned about, okay, are we at least getting a player competent enough to be the solution for what we need? Because if I get harped in on the player, I'm going to be like, again, very close to jumping off the edge if it needs to be the player that I want, right? And so I'm very kind of like thing about the player. I'm like, if I can see what you're trying to do, I'm a little bit more like, I just think you can't not get it at all. You know what I mean? And that's why last summer was so disappointing, was because we didn't get the left wing or the striker. So I understand that, but as far as like, if my preference is Sesko and we get Gyokeres, I'm not going to be preying on, Sesko's downfall, because I didn't get Gyokeres and that's who I wanted. Because if you think the club is sitting around thinking about what the fuck we want, then they don't give a fuck. They don't care about what we want. They're not looking at our tweets and saying, they're not like Bowley in Twitter Spaces getting the players that they want. They're not doing that. They are doing what they want. And so to keep my sanity, I have to not be like that worried if it's Rodrigo or Nico Williams or, Barcola, even though Rodrigo would be amazing, fine, one of those, you know. I wish I could do that. I have very strong feelings on wanting specific players. And listen, I'm not gonna yuck your yum. You know, if that's how you wanna operate in the window and that's and you can sleep at night, that's fine. But for me, if I get locked down on one specific player and I'm like, "This is the only player that I feel like we need to be going after," I'll drive myself crazy, because I think there's just there's just too many players out there, and Arteta's wants are clearly differently than mine. So, you know what I mean? Um, let's see. I said that Mudryk deal might go down as one of the worst deals of all time. It's on course. What even happened to Mudryk? Is he injured? I think it was the drugs ban. The drugs ban was crazy, and I hope they don't come and arrest me or sue me or something. But uh, part of me feels that they set him up so that they could, get rid of him easier because they knew it would be difficult to offload. I don't know, because he swears he doesn't know how those drugs got in the system, and I'm like, did they get him? Like, I'm getting all into the, well, maybe they set him up, kind of thing. But listen, allegedly. So I don't know, but listen, I'm a big believer in environment, and one transfer can set you off in the complete wrong direction. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not a good player, but it just matters because we've seen it happen with so many players, and maybe they go to a place and it doesn't work, and then they go somewhere else and it works out for them. And you're like, damn, they look like a completely different player, especially when it comes to Chelsea and Man United. Those are two clubs that if you go to those clubs at the wrong time, it could set your career in such a bad way, like in such a bad direction that you can't recover. Or when you do recover, it's like almost in a completely different lifetime. And do I feel like he would have been that bad for us? Nah, because I think the initial fuck up was him going to a place that he didn't want to go to. He was dead set on coming to Arsenal, and he ended up at a place where the fans really didn't want him. They were in a bad moment with the Abramovich stuff. I don't know if he was being used as a political tool as well, like a club that was owned by a Russian, billionaire brings in a Ukrainian player during the war. There's just so much cloudiness around that where I just feel like if he would have came to us and we were kind of like in a really good period as well, where, he would have been expected to perform, but he would have had the ability to kind of like ease into things because Martinelli was there. It would have just been a different vibe. I feel like you go to the wrong place, it could set you off in the wrong direction. The pressure that he was under and the fact that, us Arsenal fans are like preying on his downfall. He was at a club that he didn't want to be at, and they were in like a terrible moment. Yeah, it just was horrible. But yeah, I was so glad Arsenal didn't get and landed with Mudryk. Mudryk was money laundering to Ukraine war. It was something weird. It was very weird about that. Do you remember Arsenal fans were upset we signed Odegaard over Buendia back in the day? Do you guys know where he is now? He was at Leverkusen, and they're actively selling him to like a championship club now. So, again, sometimes you do get the right player, and that time we did get the right player because people were like loving Buendia, and I'm just like, we had a chance to get Odegaard. Yeah, but Buendia I don't give a fuck what he did at Norwich. I don't care what he did at Norwich, guys, allegedly, exactly, allegedly, because I'm just like, I just viewed Chelsea as kind of like a mean, evil club. And if they don't want you on their books anymore, they'll do anything to get you off the books. That's how I think. I blame Anthony. His price tag to United made the Shakhtar chairman ask for more money, and Arsenal said, I do think it was like kind of embarrassing that they were negotiating the deal in like a completely different country than Edu was. I don't know if they told Edu they would be where he was at, and then they went and they were in a different country negotiating. I think that was also when I got the ick from Edu. I was like, you didn't even know, bitch. You were in a completely different country and they're sealing the deal, and you think that you're getting it done, bro? Nah, man. It was a setup, but like I needed you to be on it more than that, man. You can't be sitting at a restaurant like I'm waiting on them to show up and they're closing the deal. Cannot. I'm sorry, bro. I can't. I was like, I can't do it. this cannot be my seat, like my sporting director. Caicedo could have had a Premier League title and a League Cup. Instead, he has a conference. Meaning, if he had gone to Liverpool, it was crazy because the only team that I saw Caicedo really fight to go to was us. um, but I think I'll be honest, when it comes to Caicedo and Rice, I think both players ended up where they needed to be, and there's not a single fiber in my being that would make me want to swap players. I just think Rice is the exact player that we need. I think we need a big personality, somebody that is not afraid to lead the pack. And, you know, I don't think as good as Caicedo is, I think he's a piece of a team, not a leader. I don't, maybe they view him as a leader, and maybe I'm getting this completely wrong, but there's just Declan is just a completely different animal when it comes to, I feel like, his mentality and what he brings to the table, which is something that Arsenal desperately need. Caicedo is somebody that I think he's gonna do the things, but is he gonna score those free kicks? Probably not. And I don't even know if that's just an ability thing. That's just I have the balls to put the ball in the back of the net against, Real Madrid, you know. And so I think both players ended up where they needed to be. I think Caicedo is a fabulous player. Um, and it does very well for Chelsea. But this is going to sound so bad, but I'm kind of glad we missed out on Caicedo because I just think Rice fits us so much better. But that's just me. Maybe I think I think there are some Arsenal fans that probably would prefer Caicedo, and it's just a preference thing. But 2 years with Rice, I just feel like it's the right thing for us. But yeah. Jess, what are the fashion trends that you were not eager to participate in? I mean, that is like a question for a whole nother day. Like, I could go on for a long time. I don't really participate in a lot of trends, so we'll save that for another day. We'll do a Q&A, maybe on Friday. And so if we do the Q&A on Friday, then we can just chit chat about anything. But that is a question for another day. So we could talk about that on Friday when we do like a Q&A or something. Ricedo combo would have been dope though. Man United ruined Sanchez. We ruined Mkhitaryan. Caicedo is a leader by example. Rice more Roy Keane, Gerrard type of leader. And I feel like we need that because we are a kind of like a good boyish type of team. And I'm not saying that Declan Rice is not a good boy, but we have some quieter leaders, some lead by examples already. Somebody like an Odegaard is like that. But I think we need somebody that has a little bit more of that traditional leadership values, So, yeah, I think to me, Declan is the perfect player for us. Yeah, I'm liking where things are going. Let's see. So if we get our priority signing, Zubi, Sesko, Rodrigo, and a defender, how do we match up against City and Liverpool? Do we have a better chance of winning the Premier League or Champions League? I mean, we already have the best defense in the league, and I feel like we forget that because our attack is so shit, but that defense saves us from being like just a regular top 4 team. And so if that maintains and we're able to add the X factor that gives us the goals against Newcastle and Villa that we so greatly need, or somebody that can finish the chance that Martinelli misses at home against PSG, or makes the chances that Odegaard and Kai Havertz misses against United, then we are much closer to winning trophies 110%. That's, to me, as frustrating, like the most frustrating thing about Arsenal is not how far away we are, it's how close we are and how we neglect to get the players that are going to get us over the line. That's what frustrates me. Being 2 to 5% away from being where you need to be, to me, is more frustrating than being 90% away. And that's why rebuilding feels so much better than being where we are. Rebuilding, you're so far away, there's no pressure. But when you're 2 to 5% away and all you need is a striker and maybe another attacker with the X factor, and you've needed it. Because we're going to score, like we had way less goals this season because we had players out for long periods of time. Saka, Kai was out for a long period of time. We had very big injuries up front. But In a normal season, we're going to score a lot of goals, even without a traditional striker. The problem is not how many we score, it's when we score. We don't score the opener against, Bayern away, or, one of those games where we just need to get that opening goal, but we never get it. And then they come down the other end and score some jammy shit. We don't get the equalizer, when we're behind anymore, because all of a sudden we can't figure out how to score when we go down. We don't get the second goal, that's going to put the game completely out of reach. We have to hold on to one goal because we just don't get the second one. You know what I mean? Like, those are the type in stressful scenarios. Now, this past season, stressful scenarios became mid-table teams, and I think that was just more of the players just quite literally could not get up for another season of a title race with all the injuries and the red cards and, the style and all that kind of stuff. But our main problem is just we don't score when we need to, and that's why we end up like struggling, in those bigger games. And that's not about Kai not being able to score goals, that's about him not being a natural goal scorer. Get a natural goal scorer in this team that's not afraid to score against big teams, and also get a fucking left wing that can create and has X factor and doesn't miss those types of chances. That will help us. We have the back line, and as much as we maybe want a different composition of our midfield, that midfield, even as crusty as it is, still does really well. So yeah, I think Zubamendi is going to make a big difference. Being able to leave our six alone, and being able to almost create from deep is going to help us quite a bit. X factor from Rodrigo, true goal scoring from either Gyokeres or Sesko. Yeah, we're right in the mix. Does it guarantee anything? No, but nothing guarantees anything. Nothing guarantees anything. So then it becomes up to Mikel. And he's a big part of this equation, because it's not just about him getting the players that he wants. It's about him utilizing those players and getting over his own traumas. And that's actually what I'm more concerned about than anything, because even with the team that he has, he's had the ability to win something with them, and he hasn't. That's not about not having certain players. You could win a cup and be kind of shit. That's more about him, so yeah. The national team has the best defense, Netherlands. Which national team has the best defense, Netherlands or France? I mean, one of them has the best center back in the world, doesn't it? And the other one has maybe some of the good ones, but they don't have Van Dijk, do they? Both goalkeepers are kind of whatever, aren't they? I don't really think Magnan is anything special, I'll be honest. Fullbacks for France are kind of weak, aren't they? But the fullbacks for the Netherlands are more dynamic. You have Dumfries, you have Frimpong, you have Timber, you have a couple different options there. So I would say maybe just marginally the Netherlands. Something about France, they give up goals a little bit too much. So yeah, I don't know. France probably have the bigger names, but I think the Netherlands might be just a little bit better just because they perform better, but I'm not quite sure 100%, I'll be honest. It should be France, and it shouldn't even be close, but they look so vulnerable. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think. I feel like it might be Netherlands. Timber and Dumfries plus Van Dijk. France have a better CB pool. This is true. They have a better CB pool. That's true. But whoever they put, just to me, does not overcome the fact that the Netherlands have Van Dijk. And sometimes it's the sum of the parts, not about the names. This is why I don't always worry about what we look like on paper. I think about how those things work together. And I think Netherlands just probably just work together a little bit better from front to back than France do, but that doesn't mean that France doesn't have more talent. So yeah, Van de Ven, Virgil van Dijk, that's strong. Because no combination of, I mean, you've probably only seen Upamecano and Konate work well together, but they want Saliba in there, which makes sense because Saliba is the best, but he doesn't particularly work well with either one of Konate or Upamecano, and I think because neither one of them are left-sided center backs that he ends up having to move to the left, and it's just not good, so, yeah, I always kind of watch with a little bit of caution when Saliba plays with France because I always feel like, you know, he doesn't have a Gabrielle with him, so yeah, Hato is from the Netherlands. Van Dijk, Timber, Dumfries, Ake, Frimpong is very good backline. Netherlands is better for sure. Arsenal never cared about the name though. To me, I don't really care about names at all. I'm not a big fan of just looking at names on paper and then being like, that's going to be so great because sometimes a lot of big names doesn't necessarily work together. If you're an England fan, you should know this like more than anyone else because as much as they try to force those names together, they don't go. They tried it with their older sides with Gerrard and Lampard and these guys. They're trying to do it again with Bellingham and Foden and them, and it just doesn't work. Sometimes it's about how those things work together to, you know what I mean, than just having the names. I don't care, about names. I think more about who's going to give you what you need, and how do those things work together? Because ultimately that's better. Cough, Real Madrid, cough, 100%. They're a huge, to me, a huge example of that. Like we were definitely not the team on paper that should have won that game. We had Marino up front and Kivior at the back, and we wiped them. Sometimes it's not about just names. It's about how those things work together. I'm not a big names girly, but then also being an Arsenal fan for so long, you can't possibly be a names person because we've quite literally never been concerned about names. We'll go get players that have failed at other clubs or have been flops at other clubs and bring them to our club and make them into stars. Like, I'm not a names girl. Never have been. So what do you need? It's 22 years since Arsenal won the league and never won a European trophy. I mean, we've already kind of been through it. I said we need a left wing, we need a striker. It'd be really nice to get another attacker that plays off of the right. Zubimendi is going to change our lives. We have a great defense. So if you have the best defense in the league and you can add X factor to your front line, then you're probably just about where you need to be. Italy's defense was pretty insane. Panucci, Barese, Costa Curta, and Maldini. Senegal beat England's first team. This is what I'm saying. It's the coaching and how these things work together are so much more important than just having, like, obviously you want talented players, but Senegal has very talented players. They may not have as much talent as England, but those pieces for England just don't work. They don't. And even if it was just a friendly, we've seen it under Southgate so many times. Like every time I watch England, I know I'm in for some of the worst football I've ever seen. So bad, Real Madrid says not coached well, just vibes and world-class players. What about Lookman? Because I don't think we're getting Rodrigo. If we don't get Rodrigo, we need to go for Barcola or Williams. Arsenal to sign Sesko and Gyokeres. Don't think so. Varna's laughing about X Factor. Not quite sure why. Probably because you don't have a good enough response. Who could be the backup for Saka? Can't have no one again. Like I said, I would love for us to try to see if we can get Kudus on like a cut price. That'd be cool. I think somebody like him that can also play 9 and also play right wing would be really useful for us. So that's probably somebody I'd go for because he is not a left winger. Yeah, people are, I mean, the Sesko Gyokeres stuff is just wild right now. Wild that both of those players are in the exact same position because they did gentlemen's agreements. It's crazy. Arsenal should try to get Lookman. Barcola signing is unrealistic. I mean, I'm sure Lookman is well down the list and he should be. I think he'd be a really good option if we can't get any of those other people. I don't understand what's the problem for England when they have had good players. It's players or managers the problem. It just doesn't work when you put all those people together. I don't understand why most parts of the world would rather see another team win the World Cup but England. Foxy is right. Italy have the best defense in Europe. I mean, listen, I don't have a dog in the fight, so whatever, you know. Um, but you can see that from you know, for the World Cup, I am really excited about seeing some of these teams that were in the Euros play again in a bigger tournament because, in the World Cup, we were still kind of like Argentina, Croatia, you know, um, they were trying to force Brazil, and they were not great during that tournament, I'll be honest. But you didn't have like this young core from, this Wirtz Musiala dynamic for Germany. The Netherlands were, you know, probably it's still like an in between. They still made it further in the tournament than we probably thought, but that's because they played the United States in like the quarterfinals or whatever. So not the quarters, the round of 16. So they got to the quarters before they went out to, I think it was Argentina. Um, France didn't have these players. I think Deschamps needs to cut, and then you can start utilizing some of these highly talented young players that they have. And then, Spain was not good in the last World Cup, but they're the best team in the world now, in my opinion. And then maybe Portugal will actually you know, come on, so the World Cup is shaping up really well because some of like the old powers that weren't really, like they're kind of back in a way. So especially Germany and Spain, so the World Cup is shaping up quite well. I don't know what Italy are going to do. I don't know what Italy are about to do because they look a mess, but everybody else looks like you know, they're right about there, when Romero plays for Argentina, he's like Nesta, he's just a psycho. Zidane needs to take over France. The World Cup coming up, surely Rodrigo wants to be starting week in and week out. Exactly. Um, oh, you who don't have the best defense, USA. Sorry, Jess. When it's safe to say, potch out. I'm like a casual U.S. men's national team fan. I don't. I'm a U.S. women's national team person. So they're there, but I did not watch yesterday, and I do not watch them outside of major tournaments. Like that's not my team. My team is the women. Like the women. I don't follow them, so if they're shit, they're shit. Like that's not, this not my battle. I have Arsenal to fight with, and I got the US women. I got Arsenal women. I got teams already. I don't need to add them to the roster. I don't need another headache. Um Jess, I will sound like Chelsea fans in a few weeks. Potch out. Do you think if soccer was the number one sport in the U.S., that the U.S. national team would be a legit World Cup contender? Well, unlike other nations, our best athletes do not play soccer. So that's the biggest thing is if we had LeBrons and, these types of athletes playing soccer from when they were kids, then yeah, of course, but because like the best athletes in the US on the women's side, a lot of them do end up playing soccer. And we've also had the resources to be able to put into the women's game. It's just a different vibe, but we're well behind everyone else. So my expectation for the US is quite low, when it comes to the men. I'm like, we're just way behind. Like, I think the problem is we have so many players that play in Europe now that we think we've made it. And I think those players also think that because they play in Europe that the US is good. But every team that's decent has players that play in Europe, like teams that you don't even rate have players in Europe. So what makes you so fucking special? So they have an arrogance issue. They have a quality issue. They have a lot of issues, and those are not my problems. US would be big if they actually cared about football, then they just don't. Speed is working overtime and making soccer the number one sport in the US. Just which player in the US women's national team should Arsenal women sign? I was gutted. Naomi went to Chelsea. All all. But if I had my choice, I would sign Sam Coffey. She's an Arsenal fan and she's brilliant. She reminds me so much of Declan Rice. She plays for the Portland Thorns. I would also I would take any one of Mal, Sophie, or Trin. Obviously, they would improve our front line. a lot. Um, those be like my main ones. I'm glad we have Foxy. Foxy is world class. She's really, really good. I don't think she'll ever leave the US, but you gotta try to get like Croy Bethune or Alyssa Thompson. Alyssa Thompson is one of the fastest players I've ever seen. She's so good. And Croy Bethune plays like she's played in Europe. Like she's so good, like technically, So all those players, like I would take anyone, because our team is very good. Um, Thoughts on Thomas Frank potentially going to Spurs? Will Brentford still be your second favorite team? I mean, no Mbomo and no Thomas Frank is gonna make it really difficult for me to stay with Brentford because those are pretty much the 2 people that I was watching for. Love you, Wissa, but it was more like the 2 of you was making it like what I wanted to see, so I don't know. We've lost a true soldier in Thomas Frank, and unfortunately, I will be preying on his downfall from here on out. Sorry. But yeah, I'm gonna find myself a second team in this Serie A, actually. I wanna invest more into that league, and so I wanna find me a second team. I don't wanna be a glory hunter, so I'm not gonna go for one of the top teams, but it probably will end up being Como because of Cess, but I need another second team because Brentford is probably dead for me. Um, let's see. Brentford might get relegated low key. Who's that potential signing from? She's not replace. Well, she'll replace Weinrother. Weinrother is not coming back. So yeah, I think uh Taylor Hines is gonna come in to be fullback depth. Pick AC Milan. Why would I want Payne? I'm not watching Allegri ball. I'm so sorry. Somebody else told me to pick AC Milan, and then I watched a couple of games and I was like, so you don't even like me for real. I need a team with like almost no expectations. I can just enjoy watching them play, but if they lose, it doesn't matter, because with Arsenal, it's not like that. If we lose or draw, it's like the end of the world. I need somebody who doesn't, it's like I just need vibes. Like I don't need stress. Um, Serie A has been an entertaining league this decade, in my opinion. Napoli's a shout. They're rebuilding. Maybe Kevin Schade will get more time and look good. Yeah, I mean, they're gonna sign players, obviously, Brentford, so we'll see what they do, and I think what was his name? He used to be the Fulham coach, and he used to have, like, one of the worst spray tans I've ever seen. He was just so orange. What was his name? He was a Fulham coach, and I think now he coaches in the championship, but I saw that they might try to replace him, Thomas Frank with him. Fabregas at Como, Diao and Paz are fun to watch. Sure, if you want less stress, pick Como. And there you go. That's who I'm picking. Like, there's just no way that I'm gonna go with someone that they're stressed. Like, I don't want to stress. I want to watch their games and they lost. Oh well, they won. Great. Like, I'm really not trying to stress at all. And Pisa has the tower as a good trip. Vieira is coaching Genoa. Yes. That's who I was talking about. Parker, the guy with the spray tan. Yeah, that used to coach Fulham. That's who they want. USA have Christian Pulisic. Some people call him the LeBron James of soccer, so it's strange to see them struggle. Also, you have Balogun as a striker. But like, it's just most teams have players like that in their team. Balogun is he even a starter for Monaco? Doesn't the other guy that we sold to them start? Balogun's barely a starter for Monaco. Like the team is good and most of them are like decent pieces on the teams that they play for, but most European sides, most of their players play in Europe, so it's not special. They'll fire Parker within 4 months. Como is my team as well. We are not ruthless enough as a team. When was the last time we played poorly and won? Don't do it enough. Feel like quite nice team to play against. I mean, it's rare that except for like this season, last 3 seasons, like we really don't play horrendous, like, but we've scammed wins every once in a while. the only 3 games that I can think of where we scammed wins were, like, Leeds in 2022, 2023 away, Aston Villa this season, and also Newcastle this season. So, we don't really have a lot of games where we play terrible, but this season, we haven't been able to, like, play at our standards, so it's a little bit of a weird question. I feel like, um I don't know if I'm necessarily looking for us to be able to play bad and win or, whatever, because I want us to mostly play well because most of the good teams do play well. Um, but I think we were nice to play against this season because we couldn't once we went behind or they equalized, we just could not get up the tempo to go score again. And I don't know if that's like was just like the injuries and like we weren't really into it for real and we didn't have the firepower or what, but the 2 seasons prior to that, we were not a fun team to play. We were not an easy team to play. Even this season, we didn't lose a lot of games, so we're not that easy to play against, but if you want us to be better at scamming wins, maybe, but I want us to actually just play better, almost all the time. I don't think I see Liverpool or City playing badly and scamming wins a lot. I just think they just play well, but I hear you. ESPN were talking about the world class US players and they mentioned Pulisic because he plays in a world class league. I like Pulisic, but no, he's not world class. Like he had a good season this season, but if you think Pulisic is world class, then you actually also I feel like would think that somebody like Lookman is world class, right? Let's look at their stats. Because he had a good season this season, but just because you play well in one season does not mean you're world class. You have to have multiple seasons of world classness. So he in the last 2 seasons, he had 12 goals. He had 12 goals and 8 assists, and then 11 goals and 9 assists. So about 20 GA in 2 seasons. Now, let me look at Ademola Lookman because I know he had a good season too, didn't he? So in the last 3 seasons, Ademola Lookman had 13 goals and 6 assists, 11 goals and 7 assists, and 15 goals and 5 assists. Is Ademola Lookman world class? Maybe he is. If that's what you need to have in order to be world class, then Ademola Lookman is also world class. Those are like to me the types of numbers that most good like wingers get if they're pretty good, So I don't see people clamoring to call Ademola Lookman world class, and he's been more consistent than Pulisic has with 20 GA. Mind does Kai Havertz not have 20 GA this season? Let's see. He has and he was injured for he only played 23 games. He had like 12 GA. And he definitely had 20 GA in all comps. So, and last season he definitely had 20 GA. So, what are we talking about? 20 GA is like kind of bare minimum, I feel like, for good players. I really don't think 20 GA is that special. So, like, wouldn't nobody sitting there talk about let's watch Pulisic play this week? Like, no, come on. Let's be honest. He's playing in a world-class league. That doesn't mean shit. And his stats are pretty similar to other good players that also play in that league and other leagues. So I'm not trying to hear that shit. I'm not trying to hear that shit. Um, and Robinson, I do think is their best player. But listen, we've been talking for almost 3 hours. I love you guys to death, but I need to take this bun out and go eat some food. So I'm going to talk to you guys tomorrow. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. I will keep you guys updated on whatever comes through. If anything comes out, then I'll definitely go live. But I feel like kind of where we're at right now is I think we're still negotiating for Sesko, but we're utilizing the Gyokeres kind of interest to negotiate the fee down. We're waiting on Rodrigo to let us know if he's going to leave or not. Hato is definitely in the picture. We'll have to fight Chelsea for him. No Sane. Sane's gone to Galatasaray. And yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. So yeah, make sure you guys like and subscribe on your way out. We will definitely talk soon, and don't stress too much until we need to. Next week, we're expecting concrete something, meaning the bid is in, advanced negotiations, something with Sesco. If we don't get that by then we're gonna be side-eyeing the fuck out of it. But right now, relax. Relax. Okay. Like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye, y'all.